I'm a dopamine addict. Idols, rock bands, the Premier League, the romance of the Three Kingdoms. Extreme sports, martial arts, violence. All of them are things I do to trigger dopamine. And when those things no longer gave me a thrill, I started playing online games. Dopamine addict sat thinking in front of the computer screen. He told himself, one more try. To be honest, I never wanted to get into gaming. It only reminded me of my mother, who never answered the phone while she was gaming. But once I tried it, I became addicted. Seeking even stronger thrills, I ended up beating all kinds of post-apocalyptic survival games. But the game that gave me the most intense excitement was Apocalypse Safe Zone. Its setting goes like this: a meteor impact pushed Earth into an ice age, and most of humanity was wiped out. But after a long time, a relatively mild thaw arrived. The survivors built safe zones to cling to life. At least that's the storyline. There are 9 safe zones in total: candy, cola, cigarette, beer, chicken, cocaine, knife, love, and unicorn. Players can choose their starting area from 8 zones, except knife, a locked area. And once you pick a starting area, you begin the game there in the form of a 10-year-old child. If you survive the early stage, you must prepare for the end days until you turn 20. Because the moment you turn 20, the second great catastrophe will begin. You can call this preparation and development period stage 1 of the game. But the game only gets really interesting after that. What he's talking about now is survival. Once the second catastrophe officially begins, you must fight to survive against other zones. That's when you realize why your starting area matters so much. Because the harder your starting area, the higher the stats you can gain. On top of that, those from the locked area knife are complete psychopaths. If they spot a survivor from a lower difficulty zone, they'll try to kill them on sight. So you have to choose your starting area carefully. But for me, those crazy elements from the first time I played Apocalypse Safe Zone, look at these guys, they're what kept me hooked all this time. But even that will end today. Dopamine addict's hand clenched into a fist. Finally, I've seen the outcome of every safe zone. I've beaten them all, including the hidden knife area. Dopamine addict slowly took off his headset, checked his phone, and told himself, time to get to work. On the site was a headline: Dopamine addict guides starting in the hidden knife safe zone. He makes guides because he wants as many people as possible to experience the game, so he regularly posts tutorials on the community forum. You could call it his little hobby. His phone quickly buzzed with notifications. Dopamine addict glanced and silently judged. As usual, the account Home Protector was the first to comment. Dopamine addict grimaced as he read, "This guy leaves a lot of comments." Home Protector, but the people in that zone kill everyone, even women and children. Can you really start there? Room corner hubby, instead of asking stupid questions like that, read the guide. Dopamine addict thought to himself, I usually delete malicious comments immediately, but I'll let this one slide just this once. T-bastard, but how do you unlock the hidden area, Dopamine SDX? It's simple, you just need to achieve all the starting endings of the other zones. Easy to say, damn, I'm pretty sure I've already been guiding starts for all the other zones. Room corner hubby, do you really think people will follow those guides? This guy's crazy. Dopamine addict read the comment thoughtfully, then he jolted when he saw, Dopamine addict, you have been blocked. That notification made Dopamine addict shout out. What the hell, this bastard actually blocked me. He kept scrolling and reading other comments. Is my guide that bad? At least this person is thanking me. Thanks for the great guides as always, brother. I'm sure my guides will be useful to someone. Anyway, I've finally finished with this game. Walking the streets at night, Dopamine addict wondered to himself, what should I do now? My dopamine levels have already started to drop. I need to find a new thrill, but where now? While he was lost in thought, Dopamine addict spotted something. He was drawn to the light. Is there a convenience store here? Night was falling. Items on display inside included candy and cigarettes, beer, chicken, a kitchen knife, and even a unicorn. This place looked exactly like a safe zone. Do they have a sponsorship deal with a convenience store or something? Dopamine addict looked around and thought, no way, this game doesn't even have a Korean version, so a sponsorship is impossible. It's very likely the shop owner is a hardcore fan of Apocalypse Safe Zone who stocked all these weird items. Still, trying to run a business with this merchandise is crazy. Maybe I should give them a little free publicity. As he thought that, he quickly made a post about the shop. Home protector, where is this place? DM me the address. Dopamine Addict sent it. At that moment, Dopamine Addict was drawn by the voice across from him. Are you taking this bottle of cola? He was surprised for a moment, but quickly replied, yes, that's right. But in his head, Dopamine Addict thought, wait, is he mocking me for taking so many photos when I'm only buying a single bottle of cola? Suddenly, Dopamine Addict noticed something was wrong. This bottle of cola didn't seem to have a barcode. He picked up the soda to examine it, while the other person raised a weapon intending to strike down. A heavy blow landed with a thud, accompanied by the remark, an excellent choice. Dopamine Addict's body went limp and collapsed to the ground. The space gradually shifted. Dopamine Addict awoke with a completely different appearance. He sprang up, looked around, and heard someone shout, what the hell is this? It seems I've just been given an entirely new source of dopamine, and it comes with some bastard swearing as well. Before the protagonist could recover, another shout rang out nearby. Did I just transmigrate into that shitty game Apocalypse Safe Zone? A conversation was underway. So you also chose cola at that convenience store. And your account name is Room Corner Hubby. Dopamine Addict studied the other person and continued, that rude keyboard brawler, huh? Room Corner Hubby sounded a bit surprised. Rude. However, Dopamine Addict didn't see anything wrong. So what? A social weirdo. Room Corner Hubby simply explained, these days everyone swears like that online. What about you? What's your account name? The question made him pause. Me, to be honest, I never expected to transmigrate with someone I'd blocked. Besides, this would only create an awkward situation. I can't just tell him I'm Dopamine Addict, so I have no choice. I'll just borrow a name for now. A smile curved his lips as he replied, I'm T-Bastard. The two of them walked and talked. So you also got the shipping address from Home Protector? Dopamine Addict nodded, yeah. After discussing it, Room Corner Hubby grew increasingly anxious. Why did this happen to me? This place is definitely the game Apocalypse Safe Zone. Is Home Protector crazy? How did he leak that info? I wondered how Room Corner Hubby found that convenience store and got transmigrated here. But it turned out Home Protector had tracked the address I gave him. And that guy went there and got pulled into this mess. Dopamine Addict continued to ponder. If that's true, then one hypothesis is, maybe other players were also transmigrated into this game. And considering zones like Cigarette or Unicorn. Once the second apocalypse begins, we might have to fight players from other zones. That means we could be risking our lives against other transmigrated people. Dopamine Addict closed his eyes and chose to change his line of thought. No, worry about that later. For now, survival comes first. At that moment, Room Corner Hubby suddenly grew excited and shouted, but if we've been transmigrated into the game, can we use the game system? Dopamine Addict looked at him puzzled. The game system. Room Corner Hubby elaborated his thought. Yeah, like quests, shops, skill panels, like a UI popping up, stat points on level up, that sort of stuff. Then he hurriedly yelled, status panel inventory. But nothing unusual happened. Room Corner Hubby didn't give up and kept shouting, quests, info board, items, characters, missions, library, monster encyclopedia, please anything open up system. But no matter how hard he tried, nothing happened. Room Corner Hubby completely collapsed. Guess there aren't any of those things here. Ah, damn it, they forced us into this place against our will and didn't even give us a single privilege. Do we really have to beat this game empty-handed? And as children, no less. Does that make any sense? Throwing someone who had a good life like me into a place like this. Dopamine Addict felt something off. A good life, Room Corner Hubby continued to complain. Damn, I should have cursed less. He sat back against the wall and sighed. Then looked up and asked, T-Bastard, what are you planning to do now? Have you played the Cola Zone? How far have you cleared it? The question made Dopamine Addict freeze. My clearing progress? Actually, I cleared all the way to the final zone, but currently Dopamine Addict is the only one who has cleared the hidden area. I should downplay it to match T-Bastard's level. Thinking that, he answered, I've reached the unicorn zone, yet Room Corner Hubby was still surprised. What? Stop kidding. Even among his loyal followers, only a few have cleared unicorn, if you've actually cleared that far. Come to think of it, that bastard was the first to post the convenience store's address. Doesn't that mean he was transmigrated here too? Where's his main base? Could it be unicorn? Hearing that, Dopamine Addict judged inwardly. Weird, for someone who hates me, he seems to know too much about me. Calm down. Now that I think about it, when I posted my last guide, he commented right after Home Protector. Wait, could this guy actually be? He smiled and explained, I'm a follower of Dopamine Addict. I just don't post on the forum, but I know all of his guides. The more he heard, the more Room Corner Hubby was stunned. You know all of them? Dopamine Addict asked, puzzled. Haven't you been reading his guides? I see you comment every time. This time Room Corner Hubby suddenly went quiet. Yeah. His expression changed. A forced smile appeared on his lips. I have read the guides. And all my frustrations just exploded. But in the end, that bastard blocked me. Damn it. I'm a follower of Dopamine Addict. I just don't post on the forum, but I know all of his guides. Hearing that, Dopamine Addict snorted inwardly. So it's not that he hates me, he felt a one-sided attachment to me, got blocked and flipped out, and he even claimed he always liked my guides. Room Corner Hubby continued to vent his frustration. Damn, of all people, I had to transmigrate with a superfan of Dopamine Addict. Dopamine Addict concluded, maybe he's not a bad guy after all. His internal assessment of Room Corner Hubby rose slightly. He's a decent citizen who always likes my guides. Anyway, you just asked what we're going to do now, right? Dopamine Addict smiled and muttered, from now on, I'll become an illegitimate child. The illegitimate child strategy was one of the tactics I posted on the forum. The Cola Zone is in a snow-covered region at the continent's edge, ruled and guarded by a warlord faction. The absolute ruler and commander of that faction is Hayden Goodman. The illegitimate child strategy is to become his bastard son and heir. Hearing that, Room Corner Hubby couldn't help but worry. Are you crazy? You intend to use the illegitimate child strategy? Don't do it. Reality is nothing like the game. However, Dopamine Addict had no intention of tarrying. If you're scared, find another way yourself. His bluntness alarmed him. Hey, Room Corner Hubby quickly chased after him. Who's scared? I'm just asking if that's feasible. To use the illegitimate child strategy, you'd have to fool the commander. If you're found lying, your head could really come off. Those words were affirmed by him with, so you're scared. Room Corner Hubby jerked and hastily denied, no, I'm not scared, I'm trying to worry for you. Dopamine Addict watched him and thought, I don't blame Room Corner Hubby for feeling that way. After all, we were transmigrated into a game overnight. Post-apocalyptic world where people can die at any moment and are trapped in the bodies of 10-year-olds. Feeling fear is only natural. Placing his hand on his chest, he continued to feel, but strangely, I don't feel afraid at all. In fact, since being trapped in this game, I've felt a peculiar excitement. I thought I'd run out of dopamine to get from this game. Besides, I'm the one who has to trick that commander, and I don't care if I die trying. His explanation successfully made Room Corner Hubby ask again, what? Dopamine Addict continued, who knows, if I die maybe I'll get sent back to the real world. But the other person grew worried for him, die, but what if you actually die for real? Dopamine Addict explained simply, whether I die from losing the game or get killed for lying, the outcome's the same. Those words were the result of a dopamine craving. Room Corner Hubby swore in frustration, crazy bastard. In the end, he could only sit there helplessly in silence. After a period of inner struggle, Room Corner Hubby spoke up again. So what should I do? You don't need anyone to help you carry out that illegitimate child strategy. This answer surprised Dopamine Addict a bit. So you worry about that? I can carry out the strategy myself. If so, I know a perfect place for you. By the way, have you done your military service? Room Corner Hubby was astonished by the question. What? No, I'm actually only just turned 20. Dopamine Addict also thought for a moment. 20, right, no wonder you act like a child. He said thoughtfully, since you haven't enlisted, that's actually perfect. A smile was on dopamine addict's lips. On the other side, some people were standing guard. And over there, a few people were walking together in a group. Dopamine addict declared with a shock, "You'll join the inner military." Room corner hubby went pale, bloodless, and asked, "The army, why so suddenly?" Dopamine addict explained very simply, "You know it already, we're orphans. The reason this world is divided into 9 safe zones is to protect humanity from alien creatures. The first apocalypse, the Ice Age, began when a massive meteor fell from the sky. And mysterious alien creatures poured out from it. That's the history of this world. That's also why the unicorn zone rose into the sky. And the beer zone sank beneath the water. Except for those 2 zones, all the others must regularly exterminate alien creatures." He calculated inwardly, "If we enlist now, we'll certainly be dragged into a purification war. Then a notice will pop up, 'The Purification War event has been activated. Your character is only 10, but you'll be forced to join the purge.'" Dopamine addict continued to calculate, "But we're orphans, we have no caregivers and no home to return to. We have to enlist to survive. They provide food and shelter there, and we can learn to use firearms." His persuasive explanation made room corner hubby agree. "All right, surviving comes first, I get it. But I don't know how to speak English, how can I survive in the army?" He voiced the obvious obstacle. "Oh right, this game was never released in Korean. I forgot I'm the one who taught myself English just to write guides." Snow fell, blanketing part of the house's roofs. A letter was handed forward. Dopamine addict unhurried explained, "I've already applied for enlistment, they told us to wait." Room corner hubby hearing this asked in surprise, "Really?" He added, "Since the Cola Zone accepts 10-year-olds as soldiers, it'll probably be approved." At this point, room corner hubby started complaining again. "Even the enlistment form is in English. They sent us into the game and didn't even bother to patch in a Korean version." His attitude was nothing new to dopamine addict. "There he goes again. I filled everything out for him, from his name to the reason for enlisting." He kindly instructed, "Don't worry too much, from now on just address them as sir." Room corner hubby stiffly snorted, "Huh." Dopamine addict looked around and assessed, "Hey, is that really the case? It seems like we're the only ones who speak Korean. But nobody else seems to care. Is it a game setting? After the first apocalypse, people of many nationalities started living together." His gaze sharpened. "In that case, make sure you rewrite every important piece of information in Korean. That way the NPCs here won't be able to read it." Room corner hubby smiled in response, "That's easy." Dopamine addict added one more thing, "And another thing, once you enlist, we can't stick together for the time being. When Commander Hayden recognizes me as his heir, I'll call you." This time room corner hubby showed clear panic. "What, so we'll go our separate ways until then? Since you asked if I'd completed my service, you must have already done yours, right?" He straight up suggested, "Or enlist again with me, you look like you'd be good at it." Dopamine addict observed him and thought, "This bastard dares say terrifying things with that innocent face. I told you I have to carry out the illegitimate child strategy." Room corner hubby persisted, "If we go together, we might clear the game faster." The word together felt somewhat foreign to dopamine addict. Come to think of it, if other players also transmigrated here, how many more people besides the 2 of us are in this zone? I should set a code of conduct for encounters with them. Anyway, remember what I told you, don't act like a useless soldier, got it? Dopamine addict turned to leave while saying, "For now we'll operate independently." Room corner hubby hurriedly called after him, "Hey, you have to tell me one more thing before you go." "What English name did you put down for me?" Dopamine addict replied nonchalantly, The officer will call your name soon and you'll hear it. I just wrote it to be easy to understand." Meanwhile, an officer held his form and muttered, "What a strange name." That name was Daring Outsider. Dopamine addict observed after some time had passed, "All right, it seems room corner hubby's enlistment form went through smoothly." He refocused on his own task. Now it's time to find Luna Moon's grave. The grave of that poor woman. She's buried with the token of the illegitimate child. Moreover, in the game, Commander Hayden originally came from another zone. Before joining the Kola military, he had nearly died but was miraculously saved by a soldier. The name of that soldier was Luna Moon. After that, upon joining the Kola military, Hayden became Luna Moon's lover and they even had a child. But a cold declaration was made: if you marry my daughter, you'll inherit everything I have. What happened next went against everyone's expectations. Hayden married the previous commander's daughter. He promised that once he became commander, he would bring Luna Moon and their child home. But he was never able to fulfill that promise. The reason for that was because Luna Moon had suddenly disappeared. Dopamine Addict's eyes widened in surprise. He hurriedly hid behind a rock as someone appeared. Is it a rat? Dopamine Addict looked around and calculated silently. That was close. I almost screwed up. I need to be careful. I'll be in big trouble if I'm caught. Even as I was playing through the Kola zone, the commander was still obsessively searching everywhere for Luna Moon and the child. Dopamine Addict peered cautiously from behind the rock. His expression grew solemn. In front of him was a grave that didn't reveal Luna Moon's death. As he moved closer, he thought to himself, I feel a bit guilty disturbing a grave, but I have no other choice. A notification appeared because the key item for the illegitimate child's strategy was inside. Dopamine Addict's hand froze as he sensed something. He scooped up a handful of soil and assessed it. The soil's loose, don't tell me. Dopamine Addict felt a bit surprised. Has another player been here already? In the past, an epidemic swept through the slum where Luna Moon lived. Everyone who was still healthy fled. But as a medic, she stayed behind alone to care for the sick. Not long after, she became infected too, and the surviving patients built this grave for her. A bone-chilling blizzard gusted across the mountainside. Dopamine Addict dug frantically while thinking. She was a pretty decent person among them. The shelter she found after leaving Hayden suffered an outbreak. What a tragedy. Finished, he used his shovel to pry open the coffin lid before him, but I guess this works to my advantage. Because of the epidemic, hardly anyone comes here anymore. It's so remote that even Hayden couldn't find it. The moment the lid opened, he flinched. The coffin was already open. Just as he suspected, inside lay a white skeleton with an empty neck. The commander's token was gone. Dopamine Addict suddenly remembered Hayden's request. The canonical strategy for the illegitimate child storyline begins like this: recover Commander Hayden's token from Luna Moon's grave, then bring it to him. To be recognized as the commander's illegitimate child, you need the token he gave Luna Moon, and that token is the military ID card. I had anticipated this to some extent. Someone was quick enough to take it, but I was truly one step behind. At that thought, the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Heh, this is getting interesting. Dopamine Addict immediately thought of the golden key, but no need to worry because I know where the real token is. Then he carefully knelt beside the skeleton. I didn't write this in my strategy guide, but the real token Hayden gave her isn't the military ID. After that, Dopamine Addict reached toward the skull. The true token was. The meteorite had brought destruction to this world, a ring forged from a fragment of it, the Moonstone Ring. He held it in his hand and examined it for a long moment. Normally, you can clear this questline with just the military ID, but since someone was faster, I have no other choice. Even though her grave was looted after her death, she certainly never wanted this ring to be taken. Having decided, he stood and softly spoke before the grave. I'm sorry for disturbing your eternal rest, Luna Moon, and I'm sorry that from now on I'll be pretending to be your child. Dopamine Addict bowed his head and made a reciprocal vow. If I become the commander's successor, I'll truly treat him like my own father. I'll do my best to survive. No sooner had he finished than a strong wind blew through. You have taken one step closer to the secrets of the apocalypse. Dopamine Addict gritted his teeth, trying to hide the ring in his hand. In the apocalypse, has there always been an event like this? I'm about to be discovered. A system panel suddenly appeared before his eyes, unlocking part of the system. Character profile available, inventory available, chat locked, privileges for players who have cleared all zones are available. Do you want to check? He pondered at the sight. Privileges too, are they granted for meeting certain conditions? I should see if I can connect with other users. The notification remained before his eyes. Privileges for players who have cleared all zones are available. Do you want to check? He stepped closer and selected it. Chat, I want to scout around a bit more, but first open the privileges. Immediate confirmation. The system panel displayed, "Welcome to this world. Player Dopamine Addict is the only player to clear all zones. You are granted the ability to inherit titles. Title effects do not stack. Title list: Friend of Luna Moon, Toxin Specialist, Eternal Commander, Enemy of the Goodman Clan, Hero of the Purge War." Dopamine Addict nodded, understanding somewhat. So title inheritance is the privilege. That's a lot. He sketched out a scheme for himself. Once you earn a title in a safe zone, you can carry it into the next playthrough, and its effects usually relate to how you obtained it. For example, if you equip the title Friend of Luna Moon, when no other title is active, you can more easily raise favor with NPCs who liked Luna Moon. He finally decided, since he had to meet the commander tomorrow, he should equip the title Friend of Luna Moon. But if only those who have cleared all zones get privileges, that means everyone else has to start from scratch. What the hell was that bastard who sent us into this game thinking? The notification appeared again. The effect of the title Friend of Luna Moon is being applied to the target. Dopamine Addict stared down at his hand in bewilderment. The title effect is being applied. Remembering something, he turned and looked at the grave. This notification only appears when an NPC affected by the title is nearby, but it's only me here. Dopamine Addict silently picked up the shovel from the ground. He then busied himself covering the coffin lid with snow. I don't know what that was, but since nothing happened, it's probably fine. I'll ignore it and close the coffin. Looking at the disturbed snow, Dopamine Addict wondered, come to think of it, did the one who took the military ID go to the commander's mansion? Then he returned to Hayden's mansion amid the gossip. What a pity. He was only trying to follow a perfect guide, such a sharp and diligent player, and now I have to chase him away. Guards blocked him as soon as they saw him. Hey kid, what are you doing at the commander's mansion? At that, Dopamine Addict casually said, I have information about the people Mr. Hayden is searching for. The guard was stunned. The young master's words were not wrong. He really had appeared. A flicker of doubt crossed his mind. The young master. Then the guard led him inside. Follow me, the young master is waiting for you. Dopamine Addict silently trailed behind. This is outside my plan. Whoever that person is, are they waiting for other players too? A smooth male voice echoed through the room to welcome him. Saying that, he smiled and stepped forward to introduce himself. You're a player, right? A system info panel appeared. Name, Tijang Tisabayan's title, none-linked zone, this player has not unlocked the system, so you cannot send a friend request. Receiving no reply, the other moved closer. No need to be so on guard, I don't know if you've noticed. But since there's no Korean patch here, if we speak Korean, they won't understand us. At the same time, the info panel displayed, name, safe zone title, none-linked zone, this player has not unlocked the system, so you cannot send a friend request. Dopamine Addict glanced and replied coldly, I know that. He gradually lowered his guard. Since the guy shared information, he seemed harmless. He asked directly, but why are you waiting for other players? Safe zone sighed in boredom. You're pretty impatient. You can ask that after exchanging names. Dopamine Addict was puzzled. Wait, we can exchange names. Safe zone's gaze fixed on him because their system wasn't unlocked. They couldn't view his info. Recalling the previous introduction, he told himself, I'll con them and get through this like last time. He stepped closer suddenly. I think I should introduce myself first. The ring at his throat flashed. Safe zone patted his chest and introduced, I'm Dopamine Addict. At first, Dopamine Addict thought he misheard. What, who did you say you are? The other let out a small laugh. Looks like you know who I am already, huh? Before him, Safe Zone rambled on. Well, I'm pretty famous on the community forums. They call me the first to clear every zone of Apocalypse Safe Zone or something like that. He went pale and realized, wait, is he trying to impersonate me? Do I really look that detestable? After boasting, Safe Zone turned serious. It seems you just barged in with no plan. Could you leave right now? He smiled slightly and raised the pendant at his neck. You know you can't even start this strategy without this. But before he could speak, the other cut him off. But that reckless confidence of yours. Safe Zone stepped forward and loudly proposed, prove to me that you can actually be useful. What do you think, or work under me like this kid here? Saying that, he gestured toward the person beside him. Dopamine Addict's eyes suddenly widened. Ah, I get it. Thinking of himself collapsing in the blizzard, players who can't adapt to this world will be eliminated before they can try a strategy. But those who adapt will gather here for that strategy. Safe Zone was recruiting pawns. To later become Commander Hayden's successor, he'd need capable aides in many areas. He pretended to be sincere. I'll vouch to him that you're his son. Dopamine Addict cut in coldly. I'll show him what a real strategy is. He already had his own plan and had no intention of cooperating. Then Dopamine Addict quietly requested, go fetch the commander. He was furious. How dare the guy use his strategy? A sharp voice rang out across the room. I'll show him what a real strategy is. Hearing that, Safe Zone immediately fell silent and left. Only then did he slowly turn back. All right, the imposter has gone to fetch the commander. He looked up after hearing that call. The other Dopamine Addict told himself to find out why Safe Zone was keeping this guy around. He came here for the illegitimate child strategy, and now he's teaming up with him. The other bowed carefully and replied, no, that's not it. I actually woke up in the same place as Dopamine from the start. Dopamine Addict looked highly skeptical. You woke up in the same place? P1-26 immediately nodded. Yes. He couldn't help but marvel inwardly. This guy was surprisingly cooperative. He quickly figured out Safe Zone's trick, so that Safe Zone had started impersonating him as soon as they crossed over. Then he probed further. Why are you following him? You could just enlist. At that, the other's face turned pale. I don't want to go back to the military at all. Dopamine Addict nodded in understanding. Ah, so you're an ex-soldier. He thought of the man's large build standing next to Safe Zone. He looked gentle, but his physique was very burly. Now he understood why Safe Zone kept him close. After a long silence, he suddenly asked in a low voice, you don't resent Dopamine Addict? You're suffering like this because of the address he scouted. P1-26 replied calmly, oh, I know about that. Then he added, but actually I'm glad. Dopamine Addict's face went blank for a moment. What? The other's hands clenched with determination. Playing the game with you, Dopamine, makes my heart race. P1-26 took a deep breath and admitted, I'm a huge fan of yours, Dopamine, you're my idol. Dopamine Addict quietly sighed. This guy really wasn't normal either. He had to take a step back when the man confessed. Besides, you're the one who cleared every zone. Now that we're in this world, there's no reason not to follow you. Finishing, P1-26 turned serious and warned, so if you want to survive this apocalypse, you'd better do what he tells you. Dopamine Addict's eyes were opened. The guy's personality was truly odd. All right, he continued, let me ask you one more thing. Facing P1-26, he bluntly asked, so are you an absolute supporter of Dopamine Addict? He looked a bit stunned but still answered, yes, of course. Hearing that, he breathed a sigh of relief. Good, he sent the request. Before P1-26 finished speaking, the door opened. What do you mean? From outside, Commander Hayden stepped in. Is one of my acquaintances here? The system appeared with a notification. The effect of the title Friend of Luna Moon has been applied to the target. He startled and turned to the commander. Then it explained, because you possess Luna Moon's ring, the effect is doubled. Dopamine Addict was briefly stunned by the figure passing by. The effect is doubled. Hayden suddenly bent down in front of him. You look exactly like her. Looking at his face, he thought to himself, isn't this more than just a favor boost? Does it actually make me resemble Luna Moon? Safe Zone from afar approached bewildered. What was this atmosphere? Then he loudly said, hey, didn't you say you had proof for my father? Dopamine Addict inwardly felt annoyed, such a loudmouth. Then he slowly produced an item. Commander, please look at this. In his scratched palm was a small ring. This is my mother's heirloom. Hayden's expression was momentarily stunned. Safe Zone gritted his teeth in worry. What's with that old ring? Then Hayden finally spoke. What exactly is going on here? Dopamine addict suddenly felt used. What? Hayden jumped to his feet. You claim to be my son, do you? He glared at the boy, yet the ring belonging to his beloved was now in someone else's hands. Safezone's face went pale. Where did that ring suddenly come from? Wasn't the proof supposed to be the military dog tag? He stammered an accusation. No, that ring is mine. He stole it from me. Those words made Safezone fall silent in fear. I advise you to shut your mouth. Hayden coldly turned and walked away. If you dare lie to me again, I won't spare you, even if you are just a child. Understand? Tijang Tisabayance's voice trembled. This can't be happening. The strategy guide clearly said the proof was the military dog tag. Tijang Tisabayance choked out, Sir? Safezone looked as if struck by lightning. He stared at him and hesitantly asked, Wait, who are you? Getting no answer, he shouted, Who exactly are you? He cut in coldly, Who do you think I am? Safezone's face instantly drained of color. Don't tell me he. At the same time, a system announcement sounded. Player Safezone has failed the strategy. After the system chime, he collapsed in shock as the failed player was being eliminated. Immediately, a series of other notifications appeared. Ownership of items is being transferred to Dopamine Addict. Inventory, Luna Moon's ring, Luna Moon's military dog tag. He spun around in surprise, transferred. At the same time, Hayden carried Safezone off to the infirmary. Dopamine Addict's spirit sank. There's only one case where another player's items are transferred in a safe zone, successful PK looting. He bowed his head and sighed. Does failing the strategy mean death? Dopamine Addict kept thinking, not certain, but perhaps death will return me to reality. A voice called from behind, Sir. Safezone clung to the wall and cried. Why did he suddenly? Dopamine Addict, standing behind, abruptly cut in, calm down. He paused a moment, then continued, Because that guy isn't your brother. Tijang Tisabayance's face darkened as he turned. What? Dopamine Addict turned away and sighed. You said you were a fan of mine. He smiled and turned, and you didn't even recognize me. I'm the real Dopamine Addict. Tijang Tisabayance jumped, startled. You're really the boss, he nodded slowly. You haven't unlocked your system yet, so you wouldn't know. But I can see other players' info. Saying that, Dopamine Addict read a name aloud, Tijang Tisabayance. He looked at him and softly said, There's no way I'd fail the plan at this point. Only after recovering did Tijang Tisabayance excitedly say, I'm so sorry, boss, I knew something felt off. No way would Boss Dopamine fail his plan this early. I almost got fooled by that tone. He kept trying to prove it. I knew you were the real Boss Dopamine. Dopamine Addict, slightly annoyed, said, You actually believed that tone? Quiet, I still don't want to reveal my identity. Then he sighed and warned, Not every player will be friendly to me, so from now on just call me Hyman. Tijang Tisabayance blinked, then quickly answered, The commander's son, yes, boss, understood. Dopamine Addict looked fairly pleased and praised, Good, if you cooperate I'll help you survive in this area. He kept nodding, I'll do my best. Then he turned away coldly. Of course he wouldn't be drafted. He thought to himself, this guy is really easy to deal with. Dopamine Addict ran through things from memory. The Cola area's difficulty was still relatively low, but inside a 10-year-old body his capabilities were limited. Considering players in other zones, it was best to make as many allies as possible. Thinking that, he reached into his pants pocket. His hand lightly toyed with the ring tied to a new mission, the secret of the end times. Items were hidden among everyday objects. Each area had a meteorite item. I already knew this from playing the game, but this was the first time a notification about the end times had appeared. And immediately afterward, the system was unlocked. Items would gradually increase. That meant the more meteorite items collected from other areas, the closer I'd get to the secret of the end times. The deduction left Dopamine Addict gloomy. I thought stopping the end times would be enough, but now I also have to uncover its secrets. It seems reality is really far different from the game. When the commander returns, tell him that Safezone tricked you. Seeing that, he summarized the situation. Because you went with the fake son, he'll certainly suspect you. Once we get out of here safely, I'll introduce you to another player. His name is Room Corner Hubby. He's always helped me. Tijung Tisabayans immediately recognized him. Oh, the one who always runs his mouth, right? Dopamine addict answered. Yeah. After that he advised, so when you meet him later just go along with it. Got it. Tijung Tisabayans agreed without objection. Boss, yes, I understand. The other suddenly grew hesitant, and by the way. He suddenly stepped closer and whispered, I think that T-bastard is possessed too. Dopamine addict's eyes widened in horror. What? How do you know that? Tijung Tisabayans replied in a low voice. After you posted the convenience store location, veteran players started disappearing. Everyone was curious and flocked to that convenience store. I was one of them. I met someone there and exchanged names. He said he was that bastard T. A question rang in my ear. You bought a knife. The hands holding the item froze a little. Because the guide for the hidden area was posted, I thought I'd give it a try. Pausing, he added, after all, it's a hidden area. Then Tijung Tisabayans recounted, so he bought a knife and paid. Thinking of an area tag, he guessed, that means his starting area was knife. Dopamine addict suddenly had a foreboding. He'd fallen into the worst possible place. Don't blame me, I only gave the convenience store location to Home Protector. Then he suddenly remembered, but wait, you saw T-bastard get hit in the head and still be possessed? He looked puzzled. What, hit in the head? After a moment of silence, he recounted. The staff member hit me on the head with the barcode scanner. I was possessed on my way out of the convenience store. Dopamine addict couldn't help asking, you weren't hit, he answered nonchalantly. No. Recalling the circumstances made him exclaim, then why did that bastard hit me? Dopamine addict then composed himself. That doesn't matter now, forget it. He took a deep breath and instructed, anyway, remember exactly what I told you. If your father asks, say you were deceived. Tijung Tisabayans obediently replied, got it. The door behind them suddenly opened. At that moment, a young man stepped in and said, black hair, the commander is calling you. An idea immediately sprang into Dopamine addict's mind. The plan was right in front of him. Then he answered softly, yes, I'm coming. Hayden was sitting waiting in the dining room. Dopamine addict walked up, unable to help exclaiming, the title effect has got to be amazing. Seeing that, he took the initiative to speak. You've kept me waiting. I've sent your friend back to his room. He wasn't feeling well. He was a bit surprised, thinking he hadn't expected an immediate invitation to eat like this. Thinking of how long he'd searched, he asked in a low voice, Hayden, I've spent years looking for you and Luna Moon, but I never found you too. Where have you been all this time? Dopamine addict sat at the table and answered honestly, behind the slums, my mother and I were there. He looked incredulous. Luna Moon was in the slums. He immediately confirmed, yes, to be precise, that's where my mother's grave is. The words stunned Hayden. The hand on the dining table clenched, so she has passed away. Quickly he composed himself, because I failed to keep my promise and caused you to lose your mother, I want to make it up to you for all these years. I'll choose you as my successor and leave everything to you. His whole body froze, the line that appears when you succeed in the illegitimate child plan. The system panel immediately displayed a notification, plan success. Thanks to outstanding completion of the illegitimate child plan, the 3 reward plan is now ready. Please choose your reward carefully. 3 rewards. Dopamine addict began to calculate, but the illegitimate child plan was only the starting point. To rise to commander of the Kola area, I must succeed in this 3 reward plan at all costs. Depending on what I request as rewards, the commander will decide whether to choose me as successor. Seeing him silent, he said softly, so tell me what you want. Dopamine addict had already decided internally. Of course, the first reward to ask for had been set. Outwardly, he hesitated and requested, what I want is for the commander to visit my mother's grave regularly. He imagined that if the commander visited Luna Moon's grave more often, people would see how much he cared for me, and incidentally, if he paid attention to the slums, my favorability would increase. Hayden immediately nodded in agreement. Now that I know where she is, I'll certainly do that. No sooner had he finished speaking than the system announced, 3 rewards, 1 of 3. Dopamine addict looked rather downcast. Now only 2 rewards remained. Hayden immediately noticed the scratches on his arm. He couldn't bear to look and turned away. First, we should eat. Dopamine addict was momentarily dazed. Potatoes, cornbread, and salad, and even real meat, not monster byproducts. Looking closely, these were all extremely hard to find items. Hayden in front looked apologetic. I prepared in a hurry, so it's not much, but please help yourself. He immediately explained, no, this is more than enough. Inside, dopamine addict felt confident because P1-26's matter seemed to be proceeding smoothly. Thinking that, he opened his mouth to take a bite of the cake, relax and eat. Dopamine addict then bit into empty air. He startled and looked around. The food was gone. I haven't even had a bite yet. How did that happen? A large hand slammed down on the table. Hayden stared wide-eyed. Right now, dopamine addict's hand began to tremble slightly. Have I been discovered? Hayden stepped forward and gripped his wrist. Knew it, I wasn't mistaken. He stared intently at the palm. My wound was gone. Dopamine addict was startled too. The wound had disappeared. At the thought, his expression suddenly darkened. He recalled his previous condition and now, wait, it really is gone. Then dopamine addict remembered the sequence of events. Thinking back, the food had also vanished suddenly earlier, just like when you eat something in the game and it's instantly absorbed into your body. So this wound could also be. He remembered being in the neighborhood. In retrospect, things had been strange from the start. Since I entered this body, I haven't felt hungry even once. A body that never knows hunger, cornbread, a system where eating food restores your HP. The game's mechanics are being applied directly to reality. That means I no longer have to worry about daily meals, and even if I'm injured, I can quickly heal my wounds. Thinking that, the corner of his mouth twitched. This hadn't been mentioned in the Conqueror Privileges description. It's certainly a shared perk for all possessed players. Dopamine addict vowed to himself, I'll have to test the limits of this healing ability later. Anyway, how should I explain this to the commander? He hesitated and said, Commander, actually he was cut off immediately. You don't need to say anything. Hayden only said after a long moment, she also had the ability to heal. Over the years, countless people have come to me claiming to be my biological child. His hand tightened. Of course, all of them were lying. Thank you very much for coming to find me. The two of them sat in silence for a long while. Dopamine addict bowed his head and murmured softly, strange. He fell silent in thought. As far as I know, no NPC can heal. Moreover, Luna Moon is just a character in the game. He wondered whether she had once been a player herself. Dopamine addict sighed. Luckily, my identity wasn't exposed, but now I have even more things to investigate. Why did the Moonstone Ring, their token of betrothal, appear here and hold the secret of the apocalypse? And does Luna Moon truly possess healing abilities? I really want to ask the commander directly. But doing so might arouse suspicion. First, I need to consolidate my position. After a long silence, dopamine addict spoke up. Commander. He finally whispered, I have a request. Hayden nodded, go ahead. Then he clearly requested, I want to dine with children my age once a month. The notification appeared immediately, 3 rewards 2-3. Hayden pondered and still didn't understand. Dine with other children, why do you want that? Dopamine addict thought of the poor children by the cliff. Out there many kids were suffering from hunger and cold. I've been lucky enough to have a meal like this, so I want to help them in any way I can. He had another calculation in mind. Of course, it was just a cover. In this world, only players can absorb food. That means with a single meal, I could easily distinguish who is a player and who is an NPC. Dopamine addict proposed a hypothesis. If I meet P1-26 or room corner hubby at the table, managing them would be much easier. Moreover, I could win the trust of the kids my age, those I'll be working with in the future. A real 2 birds with 1 stone move. Of course, that's assuming he accepts my request. He also understood the current money and supplies. I get the commander's hesitation. From his perspective, my request could be politically interpreted as a form of welfare. But the request isn't impossible. He had a contingency plan for times like this. Making him feel guilty is the best approach. He continued immediately, if that's too expensive. Dopamine Addict was very confident in this plan. His face grew sad. I'm fine with just drinking water. When I was outside, there was nothing to eat. I had to eat snow. Either way, I won't be costly. Those words made Hayden bite his lip. As your father, could you consider that at least once? At that, Dopamine Addict turned and softly called, Father. Hayden's face froze instantly. Then he decided, I'll arrange a gathering at the beginning of next month. The system appeared immediately. 3 rewards 2-3. At night, the corridor was lit by candlelight. Hayden stood by the bed and said softly, Sleep well. Dopamine Addict vaguely replied, Good night, Commander. Hearing that, his expression stiffened for a moment. Under the moonlight, Hayden admitted, Hayden, I'm sure you have many questions. Why did I marry another woman when I loved your mother? Why, as Commander, couldn't I protect her? He reached out and gently patted his head. I want to tell you everything, but at your age, it might be hard to understand. His eyes were full of tenderness. So when the time comes, I'll tell you all I know, and when the time comes, you tell me what you know as well. Dopamine Addict kept his cold demeanor. Yes, sir. Hayden nodded, pleased. Good, that's enough for now. Then he slowly turned to leave. Oh, and Hayden's back showed a trace of melancholy. I told you, you can call me father. Dopamine Addict said nothing and thought silently. Calling him father really works. He wearily ruffled his hair. It will take time before I truly consider him my father, but I should use it whenever necessary because I'll need him as support later. Suddenly, the system announced, with 2 or more players unlocking the system, the chat channel has been activated. He jolted upright. The chat channel was activated. Another player had just unlocked the system. A prompt appeared on the panel. Do you want to enter the public chat room? Private matters are only available between friends. He thought to himself, to see whether meteorite items are truly the condition to unlock the system. With that in mind, Dopamine Addict immediately selected yes. 2 notifications sounded in succession. Dopamine Addict had entered the chat room. The second player to unlock the system is T-Bastard. His face turned visibly pale. If Tijong T-Sabayance was right, T-Bastard is currently in this area, and the meteorite items there are certainly essential to the area's civilian massacre strategy. Right? The knife area, lair of deranged psychopaths where brutal killers prowl the streets. A sharp knife slams into glass and the weak, helpless are hunted down. That's why the strategy to get through it is equally brutal. It's to eliminate all the residents there, a massacre of the area's civilians. A total slaughter. Dopamine Addict stared thoughtfully at the system panel. Sounds like an impossible mission, but there's still a way. Just use the meteorite item from the knife area, the dagger. With that dagger, even a child can take someone down with a single strike. Of course, that doesn't mean clearing it will be easy. I only barely succeeded after being killed countless times. But T-Bastard not only survived that place, he even unlocked the system. Seeing the notification about entering the public chat, the corner of his mouth twitched. T-Bastard, he's certainly no ordinary man. So what should I ask first? Did he unlock the system by obtaining a meteorite item like I did? Or should I ask how far along his progress is? After a long silence, the system notification rang out. T-Bastard, are you the Dopamine Addict I know? Dopamine Addict, yeah, it's me. He immediately focused and waited. First, stay calm. A message arrived that stunned Dopamine Addict. T-Bastard, Dopamine Addict, I'll find you and kill you. The next morning was a beautiful morning. A brown-haired youth opened the door and stepped in. Young Master Hayden, please wake up. The director is looking for you. At that moment, Dopamine Addict was standing by the window, getting ready. Then he turned coldly and said, Where should I go? Upon receiving the message, he hurriedly replied, Dopamine Addict, I'm not the one who sent you through time here. We're in the same boat and I want to help you. Then he recalled, last night I tried my best to soothe T-Bastard's anger. Anyway, there's no denying T-Bastard is capable and I need him to get the meteorite item from the knife area. Then he continued messaging, Dopamine Addict, I'll give you some useful information. Dopamine Addict, players actually don't need to eat. Dopamine Addict, players can heal their wounds themselves. The other finally replied, T-Bastard, that's useful information. Inside dopamine addict, he ground his teeth, but T-bastard, still, if I survive, I'll find you and kill you. Dopamine addict, I told you I'm not the one who threw you into that area. His hatred runs deeper than I thought. Then he quickly thought, never mind, he's probably going through hell right now. Without a target to kill me, he might not even survive. So I even encouraged him not to die. Finally, dopamine addict sent a taunt. Dopamine addict, I'm in the cola area. Survive and come here to kill me, all right. Sunlight shone down on the sprawling mansion. Dopamine addict walked slowly along the road, but so far there had been no response. He's probably painfully busy. A voice ahead called out, "Welcome." At the same time, the man turned back. Yesterday I met someone claiming to be Hayden, and today I meet yet another man. Dopamine addict replied indifferently, yes, so. He couldn't help feeling annoyed. That man was Director Merceau, the commander's deputy. Look at that attitude, he's scheming but extremely suspicious. So in the game, I often poisoned him to clear stages more easily. Merceau slowly approached him. Even if you are the commander's biological son, you should show some respect. He stepped closer and warned in a low voice, the commander's official wife is Lady Daphne. After all, you're just an illegitimate child. His silhouette loomed in his sight. He looked exactly like in the game, but this time I won't kill him. He thought about the other's past. Merceau was an orphan and once a child soldier. He might be a bit sensitive, but his exceptional ability earned him recognition. Yet he harbored a secret wish, that parents would love their children and those children would, in turn, love their own, an affectionate family passed down through generations. He wanted to build a family like that. And at that moment, a woman appeared before him. It was Daphne Goodman, the commander's daughter. Merceau froze for a moment. He had thought the reason his heart fluttered was her family background. He only dared watch Daphne from afar, and he believed his silly hope was a vain dream. He couldn't admit he had feelings for the commander's daughter. So he threw himself into his work, to hide his feelings and to protect the place where she lived. Then one day he suddenly appeared. A man named Hengman had married Daphne and even inherited the commander's position. But after becoming the commander's aide, he learned the truth. In fact, Daphne had not a shred of happiness, it was a marriage of convenience. At that his face darkened. Merceau rushed over to Hayden. Commander, if Mrs. Daphne were happy, I wouldn't interfere, but you do not love her. He couldn't help but demand loudly, I fully understand that you are exceptionally capable, which is why you hold this post, but I believe you should annul this marriage. Hayden remained cold. Thanks for the compliment, but something is a bit strange. Then he looked at the medal. Aren't you also an outstanding talent recognized by the military? Yet instead of aiming for the commander's seat, you ask me to divorce my wife. Those words made Merceau falter. Listen, Merceau, as you said, Daphne and I do not love each other. At that he sighed, I'm simply waiting to be reunited with my family. Once I find my child and pass on this position, Daphne will be free. Merceau knitted his brows and asked, what? Hayden continued, so let me ask you something. At that moment, he was the one to voice it. You love Daphne Goodman, don't you? The other could only speak after a while, yes, sir. In his heart, he recognized the same exact question. Dopamine addict squinted, causing Merceau to step back. As you said, I may be a bastard, but precisely because of that, I think I understand what you want better than anyone. Like me, I've longed my whole life for a real family. You must also admit Merceau is an exceptional talent, so this time I think I'll try a slightly different strategy. Then he softened his tone, I think I understand how you feel. He was certain, I will win Merceau over to my side. After that, dopamine addict went to the mansion's front door. He looked up and wondered, am I overacting by seeming sympathetic? Then Merceau bowed to apologize, please forgive my rudeness. He took a deep breath, but his reaction wasn't too bad, so I can relax. The system panel suddenly appeared before his eyes. God entered the public chat, Dentes entered the chat, Sabib entered the public chat, Don Sir Gadio entered the chat, Chuang Kai entered the chat. Dopamine addict's eyes widened in surprise. I thought other players would unlock the system soon, but all at once like this. If so, is that guy here too? Immediately after, a notification appeared. Bard entered the public chat. The corner of dopamine addict's mouth slowly curled up, the mastermind behind the mass possession, the one T-bastard should truly despise. Home Protector, a message was sent. Where is this? Where am I? Someone DM me. Seeing this, the other replied, Home Protector, oh dopamine addict, you got possessed too? He thought of a name. As soon as Home Protector connected to the system, the Guardian spoke up, oh dopamine addict, you got dragged in here too. God immediately recognized an acquaintance. Dopamine addict, is that really you? I'm a huge fan. He stared at the chat window in bewilderment. What is this? A chat room? I thought I was the only one who got pulled in. The Home Guardian quickly pieced things together, so everyone went to the convenience store after seeing the address I posted. It's great to see everyone gathered. He silently shook his head in helplessness. This guy really lives in a dream world. Once the second apocalypse begins, low-difficulty areas will be easy targets. Building shelters will become extremely difficult. By then, players will have to leave low-difficulty zones to move to higher-level areas. But most players only think about immediate survival and hoard in easy zones, ultimately dooming themselves. After weighing things, he sent a message into the system. I'm currently in the Cola area. To get a sense of things, I want to know where everyone else is now. God was the first to reply, I'm in the love area. Right after, SSAP Possible spoke up, I'm in the beer area. I don't cry, it's cardio followed without delay, I'm in the chicken area. The addict hesitated for a moment before answering, I'm cocaine. Reading that reply, God couldn't help but laugh loudly. Ha ha ha, did you really buy cocaine at that convenience store? He scratched his head with an innocent look. I thought it was just flour. Seeing the response appear, he raised an eyebrow. Oh, T-bastard's area is knife. God immediately echoed in surprise, knife, isn't that a hidden area? I don't cry, it's cardio. Quickly sent a brief message. My condolences. The Home Guardian also mentioned his location. I'm in the cigarette area. Hayden silently concluded, as I suspected from his speech, he's in an easy zone. Thinking of future plans, he silently thought, don't die on me, Home Guardian, because I still need to meet you while you're alive. At least I like his carefree nature. T-bastard must be suffering. Knife is no ordinary area. Suddenly remembering someone missing, the Home Guardian asked, by the way, which area did the dentist get pulled into? The dentist read the whole conversation and replied calmly, do people really believe that? Why doesn't T-bastard just say it himself? What reason do I have to trust you to reveal my area? He quietly watched that reaction. Unlike the others, this one was extremely wary. Seeing the tense atmosphere, God explained, Dentist, don't you know dopamine addict was the first to clear an entire area? Don't miss the chance to get information from him. God continued to speculate about the other's identity. Did you just enter the safe zone recently, a newbie? He calmly analyzed the situation. After all, until the second apocalypse begins, we can't contact people in other areas, so saying where you are doesn't matter. But if he reacted like that? The dentist immediately looked puzzled. Safe zone, I'm the dentist. He quickly confirmed the guess, definitely a complete newbie. The Home Guardian couldn't hide his surprise. Dentist, you're a newbie. God showed great delight at once. Oh my, first time meeting a newbie. He chimed in, wow, really a newbie. Look at these veterans getting excited. He quickly pieced together the clues. Come to think of it, there was a dental clinic next to the convenience store. That person probably just stopped by the store and got pulled in. The other two areas are Candy and Unicorn, and a normal person couldn't survive in Unicorn. So the dentist's area must be Candy. He still didn't understand what people were talking about. What do you mean by newbie? Hearing the area, God nodded slightly. Candy, fortunately, it's a fairly safe area to chat. The Home Guardian confirmed, definitely a newbie. He laughed at the earlier question. You don't even know what a newbie is. After everyone finished exchanging, he continued, thanks for the replies, but I want to ask one more thing. God asked curiously, what is it? The protagonist voiced his suspicion. Actually, I suspect the condition to unlock the system is possessing a meteorite item. Does anyone here own a meteorite item? God was the first to answer. Oh, I have a pair of earrings made from meteorite. The home guardian also recalled, so that's why the system unlocked. I have a pistol made from meteorite. ASAP Possible suddenly remembered something he'd used. Yesterday I also contacted an energy source from a submarine. I'm a meteorite. I don't cry, it's cardio, quickly replied. I also have a weight made from meteorite. The dentist remembered earlier and said, our leader told me to touch a stone, maybe that was the meteorite. The addict hearing that asked, is system unlocking related to meteorite? Well, I don't have anything that could be called an item. Dopamine addict silently compiled the information. Some people truly owned meteorite items while others merely touched or came into contact with one. In other words, merely contacting a meteorite could unlock the system. After a moment's thought, he asked again, by the way, has anyone encountered other players? He answered first, other players, I haven't met anyone. God calmly described his situation. There are quite a few players here, but they all chose to serve me. He quickly spoke up, there are also quite a few in the chicken area, we decided to cooperate. He honestly replied, this is the first time I've heard of other players. ASAP Possible sighed, there used to be a few in beer, but now it's just me. Dopamine addict quietly compared each account. There are other players in chicken and love areas, but only one person had unlocked the system. If so, perhaps besides contact there are other conditions to unlock the system. But why is unicorn the only area where no one has unlocked the system? He'd have to slowly learn their plan. With the conversation over, he let out a quiet sigh. Looks like another sleepless night. Before leaving the chat, Dopamine addict left one line, I'm off. Message me if anything comes up, I'll help. A few days passed and the executive meeting was convened again. The atmosphere in the room was quiet. Someone immediately demanded, have we found that deserter's child yet? Another retorted angrily, deserter, calling a hero of the conquest war, that is a bit much. The other coldly snapped back in anger, hero, isn't it an exaggeration to call a woman who abandoned this place and ran away a hero? He immediately slammed the table and shot back. What did you say? You dare revere a woman who never set foot on the battlefield? What did you just say? A woman who never stepped onto the battlefield. The argument quickly grew heated. Anton angrily slammed his hand on the table and shouted in a cold voice. You old fools have gone senile, daring to raise your voice right in front of the commander. After the meeting fell silent, Anton slowly continued. Of course, I'm also very curious. I wonder whether, in your eyes, that woman is a deserter. Or a hero. Hayden smiled calmly, perhaps my son will answer for me. He slightly raised his hand in signal, allow me to introduce. At that moment, the system sound rang out repeatedly. Tidal effect, friend of Luna Moon was applied to the target. Tidal effect, friend of Luna Moon was applied to the target. Tidal effect, friend of Luna Moon was applied to the target. Hayden solemnly announced, my son. Dopamine addict quietly scanned the room. He had prepared for hostile stares, but it was mostly elite guards. He hadn't expected the pressure to be so intense. More importantly, this move was extremely cunning. Introducing himself right in a meeting like this. This is the executive conference room. Everyone present is leadership of the Cola area. Half of the senior members support Daphne, and the other half support Hayden. So if I admit Luna Moon is a deserter, I'll lose the trust of Hayden's supporters. But calling her a hero would upset Daphne's camp, yet Luna Moon isn't the core issue. To confront power, you must meet power with power. He calmly scanned the room and said, whether you see my mother as a deserter or a hero. He continued decisively, isn't the most important thing that the commander is my father? The dissenter immediately sneered mockingly. Some illegitimate brat with unknown origins, and he dare speak. What are you all standing there for? Arrest this kid now. No sooner had he finished speaking than blood suddenly began to flow all over him. Merceau immediately asked, young Master Hayden, are you all right? He calmly explained his action. I feared you might be harmed, so I acted instinctively. The protagonist silently turned to look at Merceau, who stood motionless. He looked down at his clothes and awkwardly replied, ah yes, but what now? The outfit the commander gave me is ruined. In the end, the officers' meeting had to be cut short. After everyone left, Hayden slowly spoke, someone died right in front of us and the boy didn't even blink. I know he's very clever, but I didn't expect him to be so fearless. Hayden turned to Merceau. I had you train him these past few days. What do you think of him? He didn't hesitate to comment. I know he's not ordinary, but he exceeds all my expectations. Merceau suddenly recalled the days he accompanied him. He recounted what he had witnessed. Not only did he master noble etiquette, he memorized the entire history of the Goodman family and the military structure in a short time. He also listened intently to stories about the lady. His focus and memory far exceed his years, but what surprised me most? He paused for a moment and continued, is his marksmanship. Just recalling it makes Merceau find it unbelievable. I saw it with my own eyes and still can't believe it. Posture, aiming, breathing, composure, everything was perfect like a veteran shooter. And yet he says it was his first time holding a gun. A former Korean soldier bearing the title of magic sharpshooter, although this body may have been holding a gun for the first time. Merceau continued analyzing the cause, but once you grasp the basic skills, anyone can hit a target. Still, his marksmanship, I can only call it innate talent. Merceau said sternly, as you know, to protect our area, shooting ability is a matter of survival. Because if you don't hit the core, the monsters won't die. Therefore, I believe young Master Hayden is an absolutely indispensable factor in the conquest war. When he heard himself, he froze for a moment. What am I saying to the commander's son? He nodded slightly as if he understood, so that's it. A thought briefly flashed through Hayden's mind. Indeed. He unconsciously remembered someone. The boy looked very much like her. Outside the row of shelters, white snow silently covered the ground. A few soldiers gathered and chatted. Hey, did you hear? Someone died at yesterday's officers' meeting. Another immediately added, I heard Director Merceau shot and killed Lieutenant General Bottom. The remaining soldier widened his eyes in shock. What a coup, then they'd be severely punished, right? The first hurriedly shook his head and explained, no, I heard Lieutenant General Boss Tam was the one who crossed the line with Hayden first. Hearing that, the other nodded. Really, that changes everything. One soldier suddenly recalled another detail, but you won't believe Hayden's reaction. Someone died right in front of him, and he was only worried about his clothes getting dirty. After hearing that, one soldier couldn't help but say, what a lunatic. Another offered a different view, but on second thought, maybe not. I heard every month he invites the teenage soldiers to a meal. Maybe he's just trying to win people over. Regardless, that boy is definitely not ordinary. Merceau slowly relayed what he'd heard. Those are the rumors currently spreading throughout the area about you. He softly addressed the man before him, young Master Hayden. He could only force a wry smile inwardly. Hearing it described like that, I do sound like a lunatic. Merceau chuckled and teased lightly, not entirely wrong. While all the officers panicked, you complained about your clothes. Dopamine addict replied calmly, to me, the stranger thing is the person who suddenly pulled a gun and shot someone. He suddenly remembered something else. By the way, may I ask you something? Dopamine addict looked straight at him. You deliberately shot that man, didn't you? At that question, Merceau involuntarily froze for a moment. He quickly regained his composure. I don't understand what you're talking about. He silently pieced everything together. It was simple. Dopamine addict calmly analyzed in his head. The commander must have wanted to kill those who insulted Luna Moon. But as the head of an entire region, he couldn't openly take one side. Then his real son appeared, giving him the perfect pretext to act. Dopamine addict imagined the commander's decision. Whoever dares insult my son will pay with their life. After analyzing, he slowly voiced his inference. The commander must have arranged with you in advance that anyone rude to me, you could kill. Normally people would keep gossiping about this new illegitimate son for a while, but thanks to your coup, those rumors have somewhat quieted down. Merceau looked at him with interest, an interesting inference, but I'm also on Daphne's side. Don't you think you trust me a bit too much? Dopamine addict smiled calmly. Yes, I'm Luna Moon's son, so of course I'll be a thorn in Daphne's supporters' eyes. But I'm also the commander's son, and I've already made a promise to him. I will become Commander Hayden's successor. At the same time, I will restore freedom to Lady Daphne. Dopamine addict looked Merceau straight in the eye. What I trust is your loyalty to Lady Daphne. He couldn't hide his admiration. I thought so in the meeting, but your political nose is truly sharp. Suddenly remembering something, Merceau asked, by the way, I heard you hold a banquet for the teenage soldiers once a month. He thought to himself, what is there to be shy about? Dopamine addict nodded in confirmation. Yes, I'll be hosting one soon. He asked curiously, do you have a concrete plan? He was slightly surprised by the other's initiative. He hadn't expected Merceau to take the lead in asking about his plans. Dopamine addict quickly noticed the change. The man was starting to warm to him. He began to state his intention. I plan to prepare the food for the banquet myself. Merceau nodded in full agreement. Cooking is indeed the classic way to win people's hearts. Dopamine addict smiled inwardly. Typical Merceau, he guessed it immediately. He had clarified what he needed. What I need now isn't obedience but respect. A relationship maintained only by coercion will never be lasting. So from now on I'll show them that I stand with them. So that when the real apocalypse comes, they will follow my orders without hesitation. Merceau nodded lightly, so he proactively offered to help. How can I assist you? Choose the menu or run the kitchen, Dopamine addict answered without hesitation. Hunting. Merceau looked momentarily stunned. Excuse me. He smiled faintly at him in a composed manner. Dopamine addict slowly clarified his intent. Let's start with going hunting. Not long after, the two of them had dragged themselves up a snowy mountain. Merceau complained helplessly. Crazy, you're planning to leave the safe zone with just one gun. Seeing him still walking calmly, Merceau shouted, do you hear me, young Master Hayden? Hayden only replied softly, Merceau, hush, it's just hunting, what's the big deal? He went on, because young Master Hayden must not be injured. On hearing that, he was slightly taken aback. You're worried about me? Merceau immediately explained the reason, because if the master gets injured, the commander will kill me. An image flashed through his mind of dopamine addict thinking, how dare you let my son be harmed? Dopamine addict paused, then after thinking it through calmly explained, wouldn't personally gathering ingredients show more sincerity? Dopamine addict already had his own plan. He intended to prepare the dishes for the banquet himself. Merceau nodded and then sighed. I agree with that, but you've never had shooting experience. This is also your first hunt, right? If an accident happens just because you wanted to show sincerity, I'll be the one to bear full responsibility. He remained calm. I'm the commander's son. A little hunting won't hurt. Merceau immediately shook his head in protest. Please don't use that as an excuse. Dopamine addict smiled confidently. I've hunted prey that can be taken without guns before. If you're that afraid of monsters, just hide behind me. He then glared at him. When did I ever say I was scared? Dopamine addict kept his plan to himself. Actually, hunting alone would be much easier, but the reason he deliberately brought the loudspeaker was so that later when I kill the monster, Merceau will stand up as a witness for me. Merceau suddenly reminded him, that's a horned hare, that size is just right for hunting. He shook his head in denial. That's not my prey. Merceau grew more puzzled. If that's not your prey, then what exactly do you intend to hunt? Noticing something unusual, he lowered his voice and called, young Master Dopamine Addict. Dopamine Addict immediately put a finger to his lips. SHH, you'll scare the monster away. Merceau suddenly noticed the wound on his arm, but the blood. Dopamine Addict squinted toward the bushes. It's coming. He tensed and asked back, huh, what is it? As soon as he made out the shape, Merceau froze. A hog hippo. His expression changed at once. This species rarely appears where humans are. Why is it here? It could be very dangerous. Young Master Dopamine Addict, he whispered, stay calm. Dopamine Addict quickly recalled what he knew about this monster. As Merceau said, the hog hippo seldom reveals itself. An info panel appeared before his eyes. Medium-sized hog hippo. Classification, monster, appearance, horse-like torso, pig legs, traits, extremely keen sense of smell, primarily hunts small monsters. Dopamine Addict calmly analyzed. They only hunt small prey like horned hares and almost never confront stronger opponents. He suddenly grasped his intention. So earlier I deliberately let the blood flow to lure it out. But why didn't you just use the horned hare as bait? Dopamine addict shook his head and explained, its nose is very sensitive. If I shoot the hare, the smell of gunpowder will make it run. His eyes didn't leave the prey. More importantly, Merceau stepped back. Dopamine addict quickly assessed the situation. Although the hog hippo usually avoids humans, there are only the two of us here. A system sound rang in his head. Effect activated. Magic marksman. Dopamine addict tightened his grip on the gun. If one of us is injured, even the most cautious beast will launch an attack. He silently took aim. Come here. At that moment, a gunshot tore through the stillness of the snowy sky. Merceau opened his eyes wide, stunned at the scene before him. Dopamine addict lowered his gun. That should be enough, right? Back at the shelter, the sky was a clear blue over the white snow. By order, the soldiers quickly gathered in the wide courtyard. He smiled at everyone. Thank you all for accepting my invitation. Though I didn't prepare much, there is plenty of pork belly. Help yourselves. I hope for your support in the time ahead. Then everyone gathered around, eating and chatting cheerfully. Someone said casually, he doesn't even bother to look this way. The corner room husband glanced and replied, that's right, unlike us, he really tastes the flavor of the food. Dopamine addict grilling the meat said, you still haven't changed. I grilled a few pieces here already. He looked down at the grill. Aren't they done? A polite voice suddenly called from ahead, hello, gentlemen. The corner room husband jumped, turning, good heavens, you startled me. He hurriedly introduced himself, I'm P1-26. I'm the corner room husband of Lu Bu. May I call you Big Brother? I've heard of you for a long time. He immediately frowned, who told you to call me Big Brother? Hey T bastard, why don't you draft this guy? Our circumstances are different. Dopamine addict explained calmly, he's served in the military while you haven't. Do you know how to use a gun now? P1-26 laughed in confusion. Come on, are you kidding? At least you know how to hold a gun, but you're clearly a player too. The corner room husband anxiously lowered his voice. Watch your words, bastard. Do you want others to know I'm a player? He immediately bowed his head. Ah, sorry. He waved his hand indicating not to worry. Seems like no one heard. Let it go. Report your progress now. P1-26, you first. He straightened up at once. Yes. P1-26 began his report. Right now I'm a servant in the commander's mansion. Maybe because I'm young, the seniors treat me very well. Dopamine addict asked about the gathered information. Did you hear any important news? He nodded. Ah, yes. P1-26 lowered his voice. Major General Radu. He finished with a conspiratorial tone, is having an affair. He helplessly moved to the next person. What about the corner room husband? Any news related to the extermination war? The boy replied seriously, I heard that in the next extermination campaign we might be mobilized. P1-26 asked in surprise, we? Dopamine addict quickly calculated in his head. Usually the extermination war only starts when most of the snow has melted. When he hunted with Merceau, the snow was still deep, so there should still be some time before the next war. The corner room husband looked at him. Did you find anything? Dopamine addict nodded slightly. Yes, but first he pulled out a ring. You two try touching this item. He picked up the ring to inspect it. Isn't it just a ring? Did someone give this to you? Seeing nothing happened, Dopamine addict exhaled softly. Seems it has no effect. He slowly explained his discovery. Actually, I recently unlocked the system. To confirm, I'd need to check other zones, but it seems most people unlock the system by touching a special item. Dopamine addict continued his inference. It seems each zone has only one person who can unlock the system. The corner room husband immediately worriedly asked, what about people like me who have nothing? He calmly reassured, stay calm. Dopamine addict began to explain further. You only unlock the character profile, inventory, and chat room. The most useful feature is just the chat function. Right now there are 8 people in the public chat. In other words, other zones also have players. The corner room husband suddenly thought of someone and immediately asked. Dopamine addict is somewhere too, right? Which zone was that bastard sent to? Dopamine addict wondered, why are they suddenly asking about me? He shook his head slightly and answered, everyone is keeping information secret, so I still don't know. A thought flashed through dopamine addict's mind. Maybe it's time to reveal my identity. If they owe me a favor, it might be easier to command them later. The corner room husband kept his annoyed expression. That rude bastard would never confess on his own. Tijang Tisabayans looked around and remarked, there are no other players left in the cola zone, right? Everyone really cleaned it out. Dopamine addict nodded in confirmation. That's right, I think there are only the three of us left in the cola zone. Suddenly remembering another possibility, he paused, but dopamine addict slowly voiced his speculation. Luna Moon might also have once been a player. The corner room husband asked in surprise. Luna Moon was a player too. Dopamine addict slowly explained his reasoning. I'm not certain, but since everyone says I resemble Luna Moon, I think she might also be Asian like us. He recalled what he'd heard before. From what I've seen, you look a lot like Luna Moon. Dopamine addict added another clue. Moreover, she's called the hero of the Purge War. The corner room husband softly repeated, thoughtful, hero of the Purge War. He said, isn't that a title only players have? Tijang Tisabayans also confirmed, I've never seen an NPC with the title Hero of the Purge War. He produced another piece of evidence, but the decisive clue was, they say she also has a healing ability like ours. The corner room husband sighed, it seems this world still holds many secrets we don't know. The corner of his mouth lifted with excitement. Well, not excited, a hellish campaign is waiting for us. The corner room husband looked at him helplessly. Look at that bastard's smile. Tijang Tisabayans patted his shoulder. Calm down, little brother. Dopamine addict could only smile inwardly. The two of them were the truly scary ones. Still, what worried him was something else. Actually, what surprised me isn't just Luna Moon. Dopamine addict's gaze fixed on the ring, her ring. In the game, it's just a common item. But in this world, it seems to have an added secret. Dopamine addict recalled the feeling of holding the ring. When he was beside the commander, the ring was still warm. But the moment the man left, it immediately turned cold, as if saddened by the separation. After all, the title Friend of Luna Moon is a title that only affects NPCs. If so, could there be the consciousness of an NPC residing inside this ring? Who is it, after all, who makes me feel this longing? The corner room husband suddenly considered another possibility. But what if this world isn't exactly like the game? Then doesn't that make our entire strategy useless? Dopamine addict calmly shook his head. No, the strategy still works. I told you, players who fail the campaign die. He still wasn't satisfied. So what about Luna Moon? Is she the only one whose settings were altered? He frowned slightly. That would be even stranger. Tijang Tisabayans suddenly spoke up. You guys. He looked at them thoughtfully. If Luna Moon really was once a player, that means people were sent here before us. What happened to them? The corner room husband felt his mind in knots. The campaign's hellish difficulty, plus players active everywhere. An NPC might once have been a player. He grabbed his head and groaned. My brain's about to explode. Can't we just focus on stopping the apocalypse? He inwardly despaired. Simple-minded people. Dopamine addict patiently steered the conversation back to the main goal. I'm only telling you in advance. For now, our objective is to join the Purge War. The corner room husband suddenly understood. That's why you asked earlier when the Purge War would take place. We must join the first Purge War. As long as we survive, we'll receive a title, he affirmed decisively. Exactly. Dopamine addict quietly assessed the situation. It seemed the corner room husband could join the Purge War without issue. He had to find a way to keep Tijang from participating. If both of us ran into trouble in the first Purge War, at least one player should remain to clean up the aftermath. At the thought, he smiled faintly. Anyway, I don't intend to die easily. The corner room husband looked around the room and grumbled. Hey, can't we talk outside? You didn't bring us here just to show off the room, did you? Dopamine addict replied calmly. Of course not. He then placed 2 plates in front of them. Dopamine addict added another item to the table, cookies, and the two stared at the remaining item. Dopamine addict calmly signaled, starting today we'll practice how to eat. You two sit down. The boy blinked in bewilderment. Practice eating? Dopamine addict slowly explained, I've run a few experiments myself. If you fully concentrate on the act of eating, the recovery speed increases. He immediately retorted, then just eat with your hands, why do we need plates? Right after, the corner room husband's expression changed as if he'd just remembered something. Dopamine addict replied calmly, to test recovery speed you need a wound first. The boy looked at him as if he were insane. Are you crazy? Dopamine addict continued explaining the perk's mechanism. Thanks to the perk, we don't even need to chew. Food is absorbed automatically. Seeing him stare, he thought, what an absolute lunatic. Dopamine addict remained composed and went on, if you eat while concentrating like this. He drew his conclusion, the recovery speed will increase. We still have time before the Purge War. Shouldn't we prepare now? First, we need to train the most basic healing ability. He nonchalantly pushed the knife toward himself. Come on, stab me. The game began. The corner room husband hurriedly stopped him. Wait. He kept waving his hands to refuse. I've mastered the healing ability. Don't make me take part in this crazy training. Dopamine addict raised an eyebrow and asked, mastered how? The corner room husband explained slowly, not the recovery speed, but I can absorb food without putting it in my mouth. Tijang Tisabayance widened his eyes in amazement. That's gross, bro. How did you come up with that? The corner room husband scratched his head sheepishly. Well, he slowly recounted the reason. I've been sickly since childhood. Instead of eating, some days I just received IV drips. I remembered the feeling of the drip and tried to mimic it. It worked. The corner room husband couldn't hide his pride. So, in terms of effectiveness, isn't that one step ahead of everyone else? Even with a broken arm, I can recover just by touching food. Dopamine addict nodded slightly. Not bad. The boy looked at him blankly. Dopamine addict immediately proposed a plan. If we're all injured, you'll recover first, then feed us. A feeling of unease rose instantly in the corner room husband. Damn, I have a bad feeling about this. He cheerfully finalized it. Decision made. From now on, you'll be the team's healer. Night fell, the sky full of stars. The surroundings sank into silence. Dopamine addict looked at the results with satisfaction. Today's harvest wasn't bad. He hadn't expected the corner room husband to have such a talent. He didn't know which way to train Tijang. Just then, a series of system notifications popped up. Received a friend request from Home Protector. Accept. Received a friend request from God. Accept. Received a friend request from I Don't Cry It's Cardio. Accept. Received a friend request from Dentist. Accept. Dopamine addict paused slightly at the friend requests. He quickly made a decision. They said adding friends opens private one-on-one chat windows. First, accept Home Protector. He was the first to send a request. As soon as the message was sent, the other party replied immediately. He accepted only after a while, and Dopamine addict was slightly surprised. Quick. Once connected, he got straight to the point. What's up? Say it. The other man forced a smile and replied, Gee, so cold, you don't hate me for the whole group being dragged in from the convenience store, do you? Dopamine addict answered calmly, I never said you were the culprit. Home Protector hurriedly explained, I really didn't mean for things to turn out like this. He cut him off, I'm asking what you want. He went straight to the point. Hey, you're planning to go to the Unicorn Zone later, right? Immediately after, a new system notification appeared. Home Protector wants to trade an item. Traded item, 12 cigarettes. Do you accept? Dopamine addict froze slightly. Item trade, can you trade with someone in another zone? Of course he accepted. He hadn't expected adding a friend would unlock this feature. The item went safely into his inventory. Home Protector chuckled sincerely. Actually, I just want to cling to you. Haha, I'm giving this to you. When you build your shelter in the Unicorn Zone later, remember to take me along. Dopamine addict discreetly evaluated him. Having allies in your zone is important, but allies in other zones are even more important. Smarter than he thought. He nodded slightly. All right, I'll consider it. Home Protector beamed and kept thanking him. Thanks, you made a wise decision. After the conversation ended, Dopamine addict kept thinking. Before sleeping, he should figure out how to make the most of this item trading feature. At that moment, another system notification suddenly popped up. He knitted his brow. What now? The system continued. Received a friend request from T-Bastard. Do you accept? Dopamine addict was briefly shocked. What, T-bastard? T-bastard looked at the screen with a cold glare. Dopamine addict, I should have killed you before I died. Flashback immediately after, the steady clacking of keyboards sounded beyond the computer screen. He leaned back slightly. Hey, what nickname should I choose? Someone beside him immediately suggested, how about T-bastard, T plus bastard? It's a pretty popular slang now. T-bastard nodded in agreement. T-bastard it is. Memories of the past gradually surfaced in his head. After leaving his organization, a subordinate introduced him to the end times game, Apocalypse Safe Zone. T-bastard recalled his early days playing. The game was shockingly realistic. What? A second apocalypse suddenly happened? You mean I have to fight people from other zones? From that point on, surviving in low-difficulty zones became extremely hard. At first he was very upset. Of course I was furious because there was no easy route, which is just like my life. T-bastard ground his teeth and swore, damn it. Yet he refused to give up. My stubborn pride rose and I kept playing. A victory notification appeared, conquered the chicken zone. T-bastard remembered the journey through each zone. He cleared candy, cola, cigarette, beer, and chicken zones in sequence. That's it. Then I began to find the game interesting. But things quickly changed. The real trouble began when he reached the cocaine zone. Because the game lacked multiplayer, zone-specific player AIs would randomly appear to take over. But from the cocaine zone onward, almost everything was dominated by a single AI. And it completely destroyed me. T-bastard ground his teeth in bitterness. Dopamine addict again. He could not forget that feeling of defeat. It turned out most players who cleared zones had just copied dopamine addict's tactics. Anyway, I want to hit that bastard once. While nursing that determination, a guide for the knife zone was posted. A post title appeared on the monitor, Dopamine Addict's Beginner Guide to the Hidden Safe Zone Knife. T-bastard opened his eyes wide in astonishment. This lunatic has cleared the knife zone too. He immediately steadied himself. This was not the time to be amazed. He had to be faster than everyone else. A single thought filled T-bastard's mind. If he became the second to clear the zone, he would face Dopamine Addict inside knife. Maybe he'd land a hit on him. With that thought, I swallowed my pride and stayed up all night following Dopamine Addict's guide. But by the time I finally unlocked the knife zone, Dopamine Addict had disappeared from the internet. The only thing left was the address of that convenience store. After that, all traces vanished, and everyone who went there disappeared. Suddenly, T-bastard realized a familiar person was standing in front of him. His pupils contracted slightly. Could that person be? The system quickly confirmed the identity, T-jung T-sabayans. T-bastard immediately asked, Hey, aren't you a national team athlete? He smiled and nodded. Yes, though I've been retired for some time. He continued to probe, You're a player of Apocalypse Safe Zone 2? The other responded calmly, Yes, I'm T-jung T-sabayans. T-bastard inwardly marveled, a diehard fan of Dopamine Addict. After chatting for a while, he made a decision. After talking, he grabbed a knife and went to the checkout. I chose the knife simply to prepare for any unexpected situation. The clerk looked at the knife puzzled. You're really going to pick that knife? Seriously, think it over. T-bastard didn't understand what the clerk was insinuating, but why was this guy picking a fight with him? He grew impatient and urged, Just ring it up. The clerk suddenly smiled oddly. You're the first customer to choose a knife, just take it. T-bastard kept observing everything silently. Apart from that strange part-time clerk, everything seemed completely normal. Where did the missing people actually go? The clerk muttered something inscrutable, stupid. Immediately after, he froze as the surroundings began to spin. T-bastard blinked in astonishment. Huh. He recalled inwardly, that was my last memory in reality. When he came to, T-bastard realized his body had changed. When he opened his eyes again, he was in the body of a 10-year-old child. Worse things quickly followed as he fell into the knife zone. A man looked at him ravenously. It's been a while since we've had fresh meat. T-bastard remembered that hellish time being tormented by those crazy killers. I remember the guide that Dopamine Addict had posted. Thanks to it, I managed to steal the meteorite knife. But the price was enormous. The injuries I suffered were severe. Even though I desperately wanted food to recover, there was almost no real food there because those lunatics survived by eating people. He waited for a response in vain. I wonder what that bastard would do in this situation. Damn him, he didn't even bother to reply. T-Bastard's consciousness grew hazy. If this kept up, I'd really. Just then, the system suddenly notified Dopamine Addict sent an item trade request. Traded item, 15 cookies. Dopamine Addict mocked through the chat, "You're about to die, feeling sorry you haven't enjoyed the game yet, so here's some supplies. Ha ha." T-Bastard snarled in anger, "You bastard, if I survive I'll kill you. And you still couldn't wipe out all the residents of this zone before the second apocalypse starts." He replied calmly, I only wrote that guide to warn people. It's impossible to do that here. In the body of a 10-year-old, how could you possibly kill them all? And hey, you act indifferent, but you actually studied my guide very thoroughly, didn't you? Dopamine Addict, you're truly the worst." Dopamine Addict smiled inwardly. It seems the kid still has enough fire to get angry. Good, survive, even if it's just to seek revenge on me. He quietly calculated the next move, because once he survives, he'll have something to bring me. Cut to the love zone. The god stood silently before the camp, eyes fixed on the distance. A cautious believer asked, "Medium, what did God say?" She slowly recited the divine message. God said he received a revelation, but he ignored it. God's voice grew grave. "Lord Dopamine Addict will not help us." She glanced at the system interface. "He still hasn't accepted my friend request. Does he think he already gathered all the information he needs from us?" The corner of her mouth lifted, "But that feeling goes both ways, Dopamine Addict." God calmly analyzed the situation. If Dopamine Addict inhabits a body at his main base, the unicorn zone, none of us stand a chance, but right now he's in the cola zone. And this is the love zone, where I can exert my full power. Before entering this body, I was a spirit medium. Of course, I'm far from a true senior medium, just a fake, never performed an actual possession ritual, but I know very well how to manipulate people. And the core condition to clear this zone is love. Luckily, I was the first to obtain the meteorite item and opened the status window by disguising its contents as a divine revelation. I won the love of other players. Thinking that, she turned to everyone and said, "Don't be fools. Without Dopamine Addict, you still have me, the one who can hear God's voice. Listen carefully. In 10 years, the messenger of God will descend and punish the unbelievers. Spread this rumor throughout the love zone. God gives the harshest trials to those he loves most. Even if people now call us a crazy cult, once the second apocalypse begins in 10 years. The whole love zone will kneel before us." She looked to the distance again. "This game won't be as easy as you think." Cut to the protagonist's location. Training had begun. Dopamine Addict coldly signaled, "Ready, begin." He gave the command just as Tijung Tisabayans left the starting line. After training, Dopamine Addict praised Tijung Tisabayans a little. "You used to be an athlete, your mobility is really good." He ran over and replied, "Yes, I used to play sports for a while, but you're the impressive one." "Before transmigrating, did you play any sports, like shooting?" He shook his head, mocking himself. "No, I'm just an unemployed freeloader." That line made Tijung Tisabayans admire him even more. An unemployed guy with skills like that, you were born to do great things. The compliment left Dopamine Addict unsure whether to feel pleased or embarrassed. Run 10 more laps. He stood frozen for a moment. He quickly changed his mind. No, make it 20 laps. Tijung Tisabayans's face turned progressively pale. Wait, hold on. Throughout training, Dopamine Addict kept reminding himself, titles do not increase physical stats. In the end, if Dopamine Addict doesn't train, he's still just a normal 10-year-old kid. Looking at the titles earned from the first to conquer the entire zone reward, like the system's listing, all titles only increase NPC goodwill or skill proficiency. They do not affect physical stats at all. But there's one question everyone wonders. Why does Dopamine Addict shoot so accurately? The answer is simple. Dopamine Addict holds a rather useful title, Magic Marksman. It can be obtained by hitting a monster's gem with a single shot 10 times in a row. When equipped, the first 6 shots will absolutely not miss the target. However, the 7th bullet is guaranteed to hit the person the player treasures most. Because I used the Magic Marksman title, as long as I equip this title, I'll hit any target. But only for the first 6 shots because every reward comes with its own risk, and with this skill, the price is very steep. The 7th bullet carries a curse. It must hit the person most important to you. Dopamine Addict ran while thinking, so his breathing was a bit off. Thinking back, I fired 3 shots at targets, 1 at the hippopig, so only 2 safe shots remain. If I fire the 7th bullet, it will aim straight at Commander Hayden, the one with the highest goodwill toward me. I must limit use of this title as much as possible. Better not to use it at all. If only I hadn't met Merceau. Without him, I wouldn't have wasted shots on those practice targets. It's because he grew suspicious. Later, if the commander gets shot, it'll be your fault. At that moment, Tijang Tisabayance's voice rang in his ear. Hey, did you hear me calling just now? What are you thinking about so intently? Dopamine Addict stopped, his face tired. I'm listening. But how could he hide it from him? It was clearly a lie. Still, Tijang Tisabayance was fine with it. Then I'll say it again. Training too long reduces effectiveness. How about interval training, shorter time but higher intensity? The idea made Dopamine Addict nod in approval. Typical athlete's logic. Suddenly, Tijang Tisabayance's mood fell. I also want to manage my diet, but that's probably hard here, right? After thinking of something, Dopamine Addict brightened. Oh, right. His mood lifted to the top. What's up? Besides training, there's another way to restore HP. Then the protagonist went to see his assistant, Merceau, who paused his work and put down his pen. Military hardtack. Dopamine Addict smiled and nodded in confirmation. Since we're under lockdown, what else would we do? After finishing the morning workout and testing various foods, Dopamine Addict found that meat restored HP better than cookies, and compressed foods like canned goods or jerky were even more effective than fresh meat. For compact, portable food, nothing beats military hardtack. After explaining, Dopamine Addict tried to exploit it fully. Do you have any spare hardtack? Even expired is fine. He ran through possibilities in his head. Stones can't be consumed, but I want to see what happens with spoiled food. Merceau's hand stopped on a page of a book, revealing hesitation. Without a word, he stood up. Merceau brushed past Dopamine Addict and tossed back a line. I don't know why you suddenly want hardtack, but I happen to have some things to check. Want to come to the lab with me? He paused briefly, suspicious. Check what? But in the end he nodded. All right, let's go. Very quickly, the two arrived at the Research Institute, officially named the Safe Zone Security Research Institute. It's where supplies are developed, excluding weapons such as military hardtack and uniforms. Merceau introduced the pieces of meat on the tray. This is jerky, one of our rations made from monster meat. There's still a little left. Please try it. Dopamine Addict slowly examined it carefully. It's bigger than I thought. At the invitation, he tried biting off a small corner. Dopamine Addict's expression immediately darkened. It tasted like chewing a pair of unwashed military boots for years. Merceau got a bit excited at that remark. You've eaten military boots before? Dopamine Addict chewed a few more times and shook his head. Of course not, he thought to himself. I'm just repeating lines from the game. Just then, the research room door was pushed open. Is the young master visiting? The middle-aged man standing there was drenched in sweat and clearly tense. You're really here to see our military hardtack? He was the director of the Research Institute. Before anyone could speak, the director expressed his excitement. Finally, someone understands the importance of food supplies. It's been less than 100 years since the post-apocalypse famine. We could fall into a food crisis again. He dropped his papers and clutched his head in despair. So we must prepare now, but food research is always sidelined. Merceau looked helpless at the overreaction. Most elders who survived the apocalypse are like that. Dopamine Addict could only hum in agreement. He and the director carefully picked up each report. I think the director is right. He seemed a bit incredulous, young master. Dopamine Addict smiled, looking utterly sincere. My dream is just to eat proper meals. If that can help ensure no one goes hungry later, I'll support the director. The director was moved to tears. I heard you invited kids your age to dine with you, but I didn't expect you to have such deep thoughts. He added, going along with it, there's one more thing. I don't want my friends to go hungry in the conquest war, so we need a smaller, lighter type of hardtack than this. Can you make that? The director couldn't contain his emotion. Our lab has top-notch freeze-drying technology, it's just that no one had asked to improve hardtack before. He picked up a piece of meat and promised firmly, trust me, I absolutely will not disappoint you. Young Master Dopamine Addict smiled inwardly, satisfied. Good, make the most powerful hardtack. After that meeting, the director personally saw Meursault out and he left. When only the two of them remained, he finally spoke to clarify, so what's your real purpose in developing hardtack? By calling those two boys here, you're checking on the status of the child soldiers, aren't you? Hearing that, Dopamine Addict realized something. He feigned indifference, but clearly someone was watching him. Meursault kept saying, aside from the commander and Mrs. Daphne, I thought everyone else were idiots. I didn't expect a 10-year-old boy to give me the feeling that, far in the future, you'll become my superior. Dopamine Addict paused slightly at that honest remark. He appraised Meursault silently, a Daphne obsessive who could say such admirable things. Dopamine Addict exhaled and smiled. Want to join my side then? He heard that and got angry. What? On the way back, the two encountered an incident. We're conducting a check. Unlike other places, leaving the research institute requires passing a checkpoint to ensure no research documents are taken out. Please step forward. He announced curtly, I'll frisk you quickly. This person was the son of Lieutenant General Bottom, the man who died a few days ago. Facing him, Meursault bowed and offered condolences. I'm sorry about your father. The young man shook his head in appreciation. It's okay, I'm the one who should apologize for causing trouble that day. Check complete, you may go. He left without turning back. He was Lieutenant General Bottom's son, the man I had shot dead a few days ago. It made him feel a bit more at ease. Bottom had abandoned that child from birth, yet in the end the boy still shed tears for him as a father. Meursault sighed and said again, well, that's for the best. Dopamine Addict looked a bit puzzled. What do you mean by that? He frowned and revealed more. I've received orders. If he seems to harbor resentment toward you, you must deal with him immediately, young master. But after confirming, the boy held no grudge. He was momentarily left speechless, so that was what he wanted to check. He truly missed nothing. Come to think of it, since that incident, everyone had been strangely silent. Whenever they met Dopamine Addict, they pretended not to see him. He needed to know what the high-ranking leaders were thinking of him. Only then could he distinguish allies from enemies. If they keep avoiding him like this, perhaps Dopamine Addict should visit each house in person. One fine morning in the officers' meeting room, a man spoke up to begin. You've all seen it, the mid-sized monster that kid brought back. That hippopig left quite an impression. Of course they had seen it. A supporter of Daphne prefaced, even if the commander wants to polish his son's reputation, assigning such a task to a 10-year-old is absurd. Immediately, a heated argument broke out. Do you really think that was the commander's order? Someone cited Meursault as evidence. Just look at Director Meursault accompanying him and you'll understand. A dissenting voice rose. I disagree. The boy is young, but there's something deeply unsettling about him. Anton remained silent as they argued fiercely. Someone had died right before their eyes and he hadn't even blinked. After a while, he posed a question that stunned the others. Isn't the crucial point whether he's a threat to Mrs. Daphne? A man furrowed his brow and asked, Has Mrs. Daphne said anything? Anton shook his head directly. Not yet. He tapped his finger lightly on the table. She's surely thinking about how to deal with that boy. Mrs. Daphne must know he's no ordinary child. Not only does he draw support to Hayden, but he also consolidates her position by feeding peers. Do you really think he did all this just for recognition? Is that really all? He's certainly aiming for something far bigger. At that moment, the meeting room door was pushed open again. The representative of Hayden's supporters entered with several files. Oh, you all gathered without bothering to inform us. He glanced around and taunted, Why so quiet? Are you discussing something you don't want us to hear? Anton glanced at the head of Hayden's supporters. We're just talking about young Master Hayden. His hunting skills are truly remarkable. He nonchalantly pulled out a chair and sat down. Oh, is that so? The head of Hayden's supporters handed out some papers. I've already been looking forward to joining him in the conquest war. If the commander allows, there are many things I'd like to teach him. Anton curled his lips slightly, thinking to himself, so you were planning on the conquest war. He thought he had grasped the core. How could they consider sending such a small child to the battlefield? Anton's mind formed a new direction. I don't know what you're plotting, but I won't let things go your way. Someone spoke in support. That's right, they're hopeless warmongers. This provoked the opposing side. What, warmongers? We risked our lives to defend this area and you can't even say thank you. Just then, a soldier outside rushed into the high-level meeting room. There's an emergency. He announced a shocking piece of news. Young Master Hayden just climbed over the wall of Mrs. Daphne's mansion. Dopamine Addict sat in the room mulling over his next move. Calling each faction separately was too troublesome. How could he get all the leaders of both sides together at once? The answer was simple: touch what shouldn't be touched. That would be Mrs. Daphne. The news agitated Anton and the head of Dopamine Addict's supporters. What do you intend to do to Mrs. Daphne? What are you doing to her? Do you know how dangerous such a reckless action is? Actually, he hadn't planned to climb the wall in the first place. But since every request Dopamine Addict made to see Mrs. Daphne had been refused, he had no choice but to take drastic measures. Dopamine Addict strode in confidently. It truly was a magnificent mansion. After only a few steps, a voice as soft as water quietly sounded, causing such an uproar. From the stair, a woman's slipper stepped down. Its owner was none other than Daphne. Something urgent to tell me. A system panel appeared with information. Root name, Merceau's wife. Root ending badly with Dopamine Addict. Equipment, enchanting purple eyes. This player uses a different system version. Friend requests cannot be sent. For a moment, Dopamine Addict froze. Thinking she was an NPC, he quickly recovered his composure. Hello. Seeing his reaction, Daphne also recognized a player. The nickname was odd and her root read. Root name, Merceau's wife. Root ending badly with Dopamine Addict. She'd never heard of that root before. Dopamine Addict continued to scrutinize her. From her reaction, it seemed she couldn't see his info. Could this be a player from an older version? Daphne stepped up to him. Why are you staring at me like that? Dopamine Addict realized he had been a bit rude. Sorry, that's a habit I picked up from Luna Moon. I mean from my mother. He spoke seriously. I know it's very rude of me to come unannounced, but I want to pass on my mother's last words. Could we speak in private? The maid cried out in alarm. What rubbish are you talking? Leave at once. Unexpectedly, Daphne, intrigued, ordered, everyone else leave first. I want to speak privately with this child. After the maid left, only she and Dopamine Addict remained in the room. Daphne carefully poured him a cup of tea. She didn't look at Dopamine Addict and directly asked, so what does Luna Moon want to tell me? He fell silent for a moment, thinking. Daphne's supporters all showed hostility toward Luna Moon, but he himself did not feel that way. She even carried a sense of guilt. Come to think of it, it made sense. Luna Moon was the one Dopamine Addict loved, but in the end it was Daphne who married him. She must have always carried that in her heart. Actually, I only meant to stir up the top leadership, but I might dig up some unexpected information. After a long pause, Dopamine Addict finally spoke. My mother, you don't know what to say because the real reason isn't to pass along a message. Then Dopamine Addict said what put Daphne at ease. My mother says she forgives you. A moment later, she bowed her head to deny the statement, lying. She can't forgive me that easily. Even if it's just to finish the game, I'm still the one who took the man she loves. That phrase surprised him. Finish the game. For a few seconds, Dopamine Addict's mind raced through possibilities. Daphne and Luna Moon know each other. Moreover, they're players from another version. Then Luna Moon must also be a player from a different version. I need to dig for more information. He thought for a moment and said, my mother said if Mrs. Daphne doesn't believe it, tell her this. She said that and you'll tell me the truth. Merceau's wife, Dopamine Addict emphasized each word, making Daphne blush. She was so flustered she looked like she might smoke. "Wait, I'll tell everything." At that expression, he was a bit at a loss. You can't blame her for being embarrassed. Merceau's wife picked a name like an elementary school student. I'll have to be more careful choosing a new nickname later. After regaining her composure, Daphne was able to speak. "I don't even know where to start. Actually, Luna Moon and I don't belong to this world. One day we woke up inside a game. I know it's hard to believe, but it's true." Dopamine Addict took a sip of tea and thought inwardly, "Of course I believe you." What he wanted to know was which version of Apocalypse Safe Zone she'd been pulled into. Apocalypse Safe Zone is a long-running game series. It started as a 2D title, and in 2026 a new version was released. Now the series has both console and online editions. The version I play is the latest one. If the game Daphne was pulled into isn't the same version as mine, then there could very well be players out there from other versions. Dopamine Addict asked, "When did you play that version?" Yet Daphne wasn't suspicious at all. "Even if I told you, you wouldn't know." He sprouted huge question marks over his head. Is Apocalypse Safe Zone that complicated? To urge her on, Dopamine Addict used a bit of self-deprecation. "Fine, every day I think about what my mother wanted to say in the slums. But if you don't want to tell?" At that point, Daphne had to brace herself and reveal, "It was a game." Dopamine Addict leaned in to listen. She described it in the simplest terms, a dating sim with handsome middle-aged men. Dopamine Addict was stunned by the answer, a dating sim. At the same time, Merceau received news. Young Master Dopamine Addict was at Mrs. Daphne's mansion. After some inner struggle, Daphne revealed for the first time, "You probably won't understand what this means. Hayden, let me explain it simply. Simulated dating with middle-aged men, that's the name of the game I played. It had many handsome middle-aged men and was a dating sim set in a military, post-apocalyptic backdrop. I liked one character so much that I played every day. But I could never reach him. He was an unplayable, unattainable supporting character. And then an unexpected event occurred. Please use this. Please accept it." For the first time, she gave Merceau her handkerchief. He refused because he was covered in mud. "I'm worried the handkerchief will get dirty." In that instant, Daphne's girlish heart skipped a beat. "It's okay, just take it." Hearing that, Hayden also began to piece a few things together. If so. Her gaze drifted into the distance. "That's right." She spoke of her feelings with sincerity. "I like Merceau." A moment later, he carefully steered the conversation. "So when you said it was to finish the game, you meant the marriage with the commander." Daphne's demeanor grew more uneasy. "Yes, I had no other choice. If you don't reach an ending within a year, you die." She remembered helplessly staring at the quest system, "Marry an NPC. That was the mission I received as soon as I entered this body." At that time, the only marriageable options were the commander and Hayden. The unlucky thing actually happened. I ended up in the body of the commander's daughter. Regret welled up in Daphne again, so I had no choice but to pick Dopamine Addict. Dopamine Addict nodded in sympathy. "I see." Daphne was brought into this world through a different game, but aside from a few small differences, the characters and setting were almost identical to Apocalypse Safe Zone. "I always thought I was trapped in a game. But maybe someone created the game based on this very world. Of course, that's just speculation, but one thing is certain, the bastard who pulled us here is a pervert who enjoys watching drama. I enjoy the thrill too, but not to the extent of dragging innocent people in. If only we could find out who's behind this." Daphne's voice sounded softly. "Anyway, thank you for listening. Even though I kept my life, I still have too many regrets. I just wanted to be by Merceau a little longer, but my greed ruined every relationship. I don't care if I die, I just want to avoid having to marry Dopamine Addict. I tried to fix everything, thinking things would get better, but the next day, Luna Moon disappeared. And I was left alone in this mansion. So I can't easily believe that Luna Moon has forgiven me." Dopamine Addict looked at his reflection in the teacup. I get that. If it were me, I wouldn't forgive easily either." He took a sip of tea, his mind full of doubts. But one thing was odd. Didn't Daphne tell Luna Moon she wouldn't marry Hayden? So why did Luna Moon leave? She could have stayed and married Hayden herself. A thought lit up in the depths of dopamine addict's eyes. Or perhaps, despite appearances, Daphne is someone who survived at the center of this militarist faction for 10 years. She might be lying. But whether she's telling the truth or manipulated Daphne's supporters to force Luna Moon to leave doesn't really matter. Dopamine addict unconsciously glanced at Daphne and wondered why, and he was clear-headed enough to know the answer. The nickname was too truthful, Merceau's wife. As long as Daphne's feelings for Merceau remain unchanged, she won't touch me while Merceau stands by me. With that thought, dopamine addict murmured, "Mrs. Daphne. He made a rather strange offer. I will help you divorce my father." Daphne was momentarily puzzled. Divorce? Why would you suddenly bring that up? Before she could finish speaking, dopamine addict cut in. Of course, he smiled meaningfully, on the condition that Mrs. Daphne helps me. Daphne's pupils contracted in surprise for an instant. But then she realized this was her way to atone. What must I do? After that conversation, dopamine addict walked alone down the long corridor. He kept turning options over in his mind. If Daphne sided with him, helping her get a divorce would be easy. After all, I still have one final reward out of the 3. I wonder how Daphne's supporters will react. They're probably in chaos right now. Whatever the case, maybe the commander knows Luna Moon's true identity. He put his hand on the doorknob and took a deep breath. From now on, I have to act more carefully because I must be Luna Moon's son, not a player. At least until this entire region is firmly in my hands. What met dopamine addict's eyes then was Merceau's tense face, young Master Hayden. He stared as if he'd long since run out of words. Seeing him like that, dopamine addict quipped, "Is this the handsome middle-aged uncle?" Merceau hadn't yet understood what had happened. Huh. At that moment, Anton's thunderous voice came, "What on earth are you doing?" Charging straight into Mrs. Daphne's mansion and driving all the servants out. His face darkened as fury erupted. "What could be so important that you must behave so disrespectfully? I demand an explanation." Dopamine addict could tell even with his knees. Oh, he's really angry. He fell silent for a beat to consider his next move. "If you want to know that badly, fine, I'll tell you." Dopamine addict placed his hand on his chest seriously. "I swore in my mother's name that I would help Mr. Dopamine addict and Mrs. Daphne get a divorce. I just promised, so I'm preparing to go now." Merceau froze. Amid the murmurs, someone said, "What did you just say? Divorce? What is going on?" Anton snapped angrily, "What are you thinking to do something like this? If this reaches the commander's ears, then..." Dopamine addict cut him off in a low voice. "If it reaches my ears, so what? Is there anything I shouldn't know?" Hayden stepped in front of dopamine addict and looked at him for a moment. Dopamine addict briefly explained to him, "I only spoke with Mrs. Daphne. I did nothing wrong, so don't worry, Mrs. Daphne has forgiven me for coming unannounced." Hayden turned away and tossed back, "You speak as if Daphne's forgiveness is all that matters." He openly reprimanded him in front of everyone. "You're wrong, Hayden. In this territory, everything must have my permission. In other words, if you don't have my approval, then whatever you do is a problem." Merceau felt a twinge of discomfort at Hayden's authority. Dopamine addict, however, didn't resist and even came up with another angle. "So that means if I have father's permission, I can cause a little trouble, right?" He treated it like a privilege and bowed his head. "Okay, I understand. I'll remember. Now may I go back to my room?" Hayden deliberately emphasized the last 2 words to gauge the reaction. "Yes, father." He hid his teasing amusement and feigned coldness. "All right, go." Evening fell. The day's troubles were temporarily settled. Merceau kept nagging Hayden along the way. "Do you know how worried I've been for you? The commander has always treated Mrs. Daphne with great respect. You should be grateful this will end like this." Suddenly Hayden stopped and said readily, "Oh, right." Mentioning Mrs. Daphne, he glanced at Merceau's expression. "She said she wants a divorce." For a moment he was like a computer stuck in an infinite loop. Without letting Merceau answer, he continued, "I thought the same, so I proactively said I'd help." This time Hayden turned fully toward him, his shoe toe aimed at him. "Oh, and one more thing." He shrugged and dropped a thunderbolt on Merceau. She's looking for someone to remarry. What did she say? It seems she asked me to find a good match. She probably has no one else to confide in about this. What can I do? I can only try my best to help her. Clearly neither of them knows the other's true failings, yet they still care for each other. Setting them up would be far too easy. But Merceau suddenly spoke, young Master Hayden. Dopamine addict, seeing that flushed face, remarked, it's rare to see him show such an expression. Still, he managed to drop a bomb, so what must I do to qualify as a candidate? He listened and only sighed inwardly. Oh heavens, brother. Dopamine addict seized the opportunity to gain an advantage. First, you must treat me well. Merceau, as if hypnotized, obeyed. Yes, sir. Dopamine addict, bored by the display, said, tone that expression down, it's too blatant. He had to find another approach. With the situation, a private meeting with her was probably impossible now. Rumors of dopamine addict causing a commotion at Daphne's mansion quickly died down. The mountain snow had nearly melted, a sign that the Purge War was about to begin. With time shortening, the required effort increased. Everyone was busily preparing. And dopamine addict intended to join the Purge War too, so he was about to get swamped. Dopamine addict's eyes widened when he received news from Hayden. What? Hayden, buried in paperwork without looking up, said, I said hunting is prohibited. Unhappiness showed clearly in dopamine addict's eyes. Now what? All his plans seemed ruined. Before the Purge War officially began, I planned to train Tijang Tisabayans. I even intended to go hunting with Tijang Tisabayans. Hayden explained, this is when hungry monsters start going out to forage. It's too dangerous. The protagonist immediately understood. It seemed even stepping outside was forbidden. He insisted, then how am I supposed to prepare for the upcoming Purge War? Hayden was rather surprised. The Purge War? You're almost old enough for the military academy. After graduation, you can join as many Purge Wars as you like. You can't send an inexperienced rookie to the battlefield. Dopamine addict felt a twinge of unease. The military academy, does it really take 6 years to graduate? Thinking that, he asked bluntly, why did you decide this without asking me? Hayden paid no mind and switched topics. More importantly, Daphne told me you two talked about Luna Moon. Dopamine addict without fear affirmed, yes, we talked. Is there a problem? Hayden boldly went to the main point. Then you must have heard that Luna Moon is a player. Slightly surprised, dopamine addict kept his usual expression. Yes, I heard Mother is not from this world. He thought to himself, so the commander knows too. Hayden began recounting past experiences. Luna was always someone who said unbelievable things. And because of those words, I wasn't quick to believe her. If I had known I would never see her again afterward, then I would have listened to her more. I said I would tell you everything at the right time. Why did people marry Daphne instead of Luna Moon? His expression darkened noticeably. It was Luna Moon who wanted me to marry Daphne. As soon as she learned she was pregnant, she left, so I would marry Daphne and become commander, leaving only a letter. There are so many things I would ask if I could see her again, but now I only feel grateful that I finally found you. Dopamine addict reverted to his usual cold manner. So you may cause trouble, but under no circumstances are you to take part in the Purge War. Dopamine addict was utterly helpless. It was the cling and avoid type of affection. He hadn't expected the commander to dote on his child this much. But thanks to that, I also learned that Daphne did not drive Luna Moon away. I don't know why Luna Moon wanted them to marry. But the important thing is that the second apocalypse will begin in 10 years. I can't waste 6 years at the military academy. It's too much of a time sink. I really want to tell everything about the second apocalypse, but I'd only be seen as a lunatic. And he cares for me like his own child. Besides, I can't reveal that I'm a player. Is there a clever way, a way to tell him about the second apocalypse without exposing my true identity? Ah, wait, Hayden, there's nothing more to discuss. If that's all, you may leave. Dopamine addict didn't seem willing to let it end there. You once asked me, if you told me everything, would I tell you everything about myself? Aren't you curious why, after learning my mother's true identity, you showed no surprise? He chose to face it directly. Actually, I'm a time returner. Of course, it was hard to believe. The woman he loved was a player, and her son claimed to have returned from the future. Surprise flashed in dopamine addict's eyes. A time returner. He nodded lightly as confirmation. But regardless of the relationship, he couldn't ignore it. Because the commander had lost Luna Moon once before, he wouldn't want to live with regret again. After a moment, dopamine addict's voice rang out. I'll ask you one thing. If you truly are a time returner, why have you only now revealed your identity? Dopamine addict's face darkened as he faced him. To let you know we don't have much time left. Dopamine addict moved from one shock to another. What? That way he wouldn't take my words lightly. He revealed the future. In 10 years, the apocalypse will strike once more. After that conversation, Hayden's office door opened again. He looked up. A single call, Commander. Merceau saluted solemnly. My curfew ended today, so I'm reporting my return. Hayden kept his usual icy demeanor. Welcome back, but I've heard you've been frequenting the research institute lately. Is that true? He was the type who kept working even under curfew. Yes, I have some things I want to develop. Merceau quickly shifted to another subject. More importantly, Commander, I have a question to ask. I heard young Master Hayden will attend training at the military academy. Is that correct? Hayden affirmed without hesitation. Yes, today I'll meet the academy's dean to set the training schedule. Hearing this, Merceau hesitated slightly. Aren't you worried? He shot back. Worried about what? He voiced his analysis. Hayden does have exceptional talent, but he's still a child. While his training opponents are veteran students, just one lapse could leave Hayden seriously injured. Rather than worry about his son being injured, he paid attention to something else. How are the other officers reacting? Of course, the answer was clear, not very positively. Hayden quickly set the quill down on the desk. He leaned back into his chair. Merceau, we've known each other for many years. After years of facing countless enemies, I've realized one thing, it's intuition. These vague words made Merceau slightly puzzled. You mean, he clarified his intent, you know, right, that intuition can save lives or doom countless people. Hayden thought to himself, that's true. At first I couldn't believe it either. He kept recalling Hayden's warning, in 10 years another apocalypse will strike. At that, Hayden was stunned. Wait, another apocalypse. He earnestly added, I know this is hard to believe. But those horrific memories are still vividly in my head. After facing unavoidable death, I woke up in my 10-year-old body. Dopamine addict showed his agitation. If this life is a second chance, then this time I must stop the apocalypse. Normally one wouldn't believe it, but the boy's serious demeanor made me pay attention. Instead of repeatedly insisting, dopamine addict chose to prove it. Isn't it strange to you as well? I've matured far beyond my years and I know too much about the military. Hearing this, Hayden hesitated. If so, the things that follow. Before he could finish, the boy interjected. You probably want me to predict what will happen next, but I can't. After revering time, the future has begun to change. A vague unease slowly stirred within me, so instead of prophecy, I'll provide solid evidence. The result was dopamine addict's request. Please allow me to participate in the military academy's exercises. Hayden didn't expect his son to make such a bold choice. In this area, there's a place called the Kola District Military Academy. On the surface, the academy's training program is publicly presented as theory and practical combat to prepare for monsters. But in reality, there is another secret training program. Human combat exercises. Simply put, it's training for fighting other people. Because elite cadets face each other directly, the difficulty is extremely high, preparation is strict, and it's little different from a real military campaign. They are trained here to fight other districts. This is a top-secret military training program, therefore all related information is tightly controlled. Hayden's eyes widened in horror. How does someone who once lived outside like you know about this training? It's a secret. Only I and a few high-ranking officers know. Dopamine addict smiled and added, because in the future I already graduated from the military academy once. So instead of using vague prophecies, I'll prove everything with ability. I'll pass the training with outstanding results, so please believe me. A thought kindled in him. At that moment I grew more certain. I decided to follow this child's lead. Back in the present, facing Merceau, Hayden was utterly calm. He said he wants to join the training, and I've decided to support that choice. Merceau, do you think I'm letting personal feelings influence me? Of course I can't deny that, since Hayden is my son by Luna Moon. But not only that, I have a feeling it's reached the point where guns and walls are no longer sufficient to protect this place. So trust my instinct this time. Perhaps the boy will truly become the hope of the Kola district. It seemed these words opened the way to a brighter future. Soon after, Hayden arrived at the military academy dean's office. The man froze for a few seconds. The boy before him was the dean of the military academy. Seeing this reaction, Hayden sighed inwardly. Oh dear, the dean doesn't trust his own hands. What did you just say? Platon stepped forward to reply for him. I said we cannot allow someone who isn't a cadet to join the training. Platon. Hayden glanced aside and thought, finally I've met you, the military academy bookworm. That was Platon, the son of General Anton, an outstanding cadet predicted to graduate top of the academy. Although his father led the faction supporting Daphne, he never used his family status to be arrogant. He also got along with Hayden's supporters and was respected by many cadets. Platon said sternly, please reconsider. Hayden knew this young man well. The problem was he was too straight-laced to be a soldier. It was Platon himself who opposed his joining the military. We can't let a child who hasn't even enrolled take part in the training. The protagonist was exasperated by this stubbornness. No wonder everyone called him a bookworm. No matter how outstanding the record, for a soldier the most important thing is absolute obedience. Even the academy dean couldn't believe it. Unbelievable. Can't you be flexible for one training session? Even the commander has agreed. Unexpectedly, he remained serious about his decision. Dean. Even though he's young, dopamine addict is still a member of the Kola district. How can you make such an insulting suggestion in front of him? Dopamine addict silently shouted inside. Please calm down, young man. To the point that he had to speak up himself to confirm, I agree with that. The rest he kept to himself. Of course I don't need any special treatment during the training. Dopamine addict turned and put the dean on the spot. Thank you for your concern, Dean, but it's unnecessary. He declared with clear confidence, I've come to witness the abilities of the elite cadets with my own eyes. Platon couldn't help but be impressed. Such bold thinking was indeed as eccentric as rumored. But that didn't stop him from warning, because this exercise is nearly real combat, you could be seriously injured. Dopamine addict replied tersely, I don't care. Platon scanned him and assessed. Though his skills were weak, his attitude of observing, learning, and improving was commendable. Unable to dissuade him, Platon decided, then assign me to the same team as Dopamine addict. If he insists on participating, at least balance the team's strengths. The academy dean naturally agreed. Good idea. He cared somewhat. That way the boy would have a chance to observe and the risk of injury would be lower. However, Dopamine addict answered immediately, no need, thank you. Platon intended to ease the tension for him. There's no shame in passing the course with teammates' help. Sometimes teamwork matters. That's not what I mean. If we're on the same team, how can I prove I'm better than you? He glanced at Platon and bluntly revealed, oh, I forgot to say, I'm here to prove that I'm better than every cadet here. To be honest, studying here is just a waste of time. On a fine day in the forest inside Snow Mountain, the rules of the exercise were very simple. To win, either eliminate all opponents or plant your flag on the enemy's flagpole. The sensors on the training suits will detect hits. If they register a fatal strike, you'll be counted as dead, so be careful. Platon spoke up after the introductory briefing ended. Coach, I have a question. This is our usual training ground, but it's Hayden's first time here. To be fair, shouldn't we switch to a different field? As always, Dopamine addict smiled and declined. No need. Wherever the exercise is, I'll win, so pick the field the cadets are most familiar with. The cadets looked at him with strange, astonished eyes. Dopamine addict successfully annoyed the whole group. What did that brat just say? Comments began to surface. Just because his father is the commander, he thinks he's the commander too. Where does he get the nerve to speak so arrogantly? Among them, one boy said confidently, He's definitely refusing to change the location on purpose, so if he loses, he can blame the unfavorable field. Platon heard all of this. Everyone calm down. Don't say behind someone's back what you wouldn't dare say to their face. And Hayden taking part alone is probably because he has no other choice. Platon admonished seriously. First, no matter how skilled teammates are, there are some teammates you'd rather not have than have ones who won't cooperate. Second, if Hayden gets injured during training, the cadets who fail to protect him will be in big trouble. Saying that, Platon looked up toward the high branch, and finally, third, Hayden's small build makes it easy for him to use terrain and obstacles to hide. In that case, acting alone can actually be an advantage. So the only objective Hayden will aim for. They all followed Platon's gaze. It was our camp's flagpole. Because alone he can't defeat all of us, he'll surely wait for an opening and snatch the flag. Maybe Hayden's taunts are just a tactic to rile us. If so, his prior rude actions become understandable. Hearing that, the boy showed excitement, so he doesn't really look down on or ignore us. But then he reconsidered. No, maybe he truly doesn't regard you at all. Putting that aside, Platon instructed the team, anyway, Hayden is taking this exercise seriously. The least courtesy we can show is to respond with full force. Now you go to Hayden's camp, but remember, the more conspicuous your actions, the better. When Hayden dodges you and moves toward our flagpole, I'll ambush and take him down immediately. Platon put his glasses back on and finalized, that's the plan. He declared loudly, go flush the rabbit out of its burrow. The team answered in unison. The plan began. A group of 5 headed toward the objective. Hayden sat on a branch to observe. What's this? He was a bit puzzled. Why are they gathering like target practice for some reason? Thinking that, Hayden came up with an idea. If so, let's get started. The rustling sound from inside the forest carried over. Platon found a hiding spot but remained vigilant. A thought flashed through him. I heard a warning shot. He's coming here, but I absolutely must not be complacent. Platon remembered Anton's words, just because he's only 10 doesn't mean you should underestimate him or you'll lose face. I agreed with my father's assessment. The first time I heard my father say that, I wondered why he admired a 10-year-old so much. How should I deal with that arrogant brat? But now seeing him again, I understand. That smile isn't contempt nor a tactical mask. Hayden is enjoying our reactions, like a predator watching its prey. After a moment, Platon noticed something odd. Wait, why is it so quiet? He should have appeared by now. In the moment of chaos, he slipped away from his position. Don't tell me it's his teammate. A bullet whizzed past Platon, only a few centimeters away. A foot quietly stepped out. The one who fired that shot was none other than Dopamine Addict. That was close. Just as I thought, Platon really is different. His composure took a hit. When did he show up? Platon quickly ducked behind the wooden wall. How did you know I was ambushing here? Dopamine Addict answered frankly, among the cadets attacking my camp, you're the only one I couldn't spot. That didn't satisfy his curiosity. But how did you know I wasn't on the attacking team? Everyone's wearing goggles and masks. All of this was Platon's stalling tactic. I still had a chance. I knew this terrain better than he did, just prolong the conversation to pinpoint Hayden's location. But when he glanced outside, he noticed something. Dopamine Addict had disappeared without a trace. He's gone. Another bullet was fired, striking the body of the gun he was holding. Before he knew it, he was facing Platon. You can hide your face, but you can't hide your height or running style. After that, a series of shots rang out. Impossible. While moving, Platon took the opportunity to return fire. But everything seemed chaotic. Hayden had vanished. Again, while sweeping his aim, he spotted a gun on the snow. Wait, that's because Hayden's small frame made it easy to exploit terrain and cover to hide. That's right, a small build also means lightweight. And being light makes it hard to detect by sound or tracks. By the time Platon realized it, a dagger had been plunged into him. An announcement sounded immediately after. Team A all eliminated. Team B wins. They had a meeting after the match. You took out my whole team before coming here. Hayden was nonchalant. I told you. He shook the water bottle in his hand and affirmed, I'm enough on my own. I've heard Platin's specialty is long-range sniping. Perhaps this whole tactical plan was his. If it were a normal kid, there'd be no way to handle it. One reason I joined this exercise was to evaluate Platin's abilities with my own eyes. His quick judgment and his ability to command teammates. What followed left Platin utterly surprised. He made a proposal. Platin, after you graduate, would you be interested in serving as my aide? Merceau lightly set his hand on the table. By order of His Excellency, to check how the training with Hayden went, I gathered the cadets and asked them to provide evaluations. And this is the report compiled from all their opinions. Hayden read the lines in the dossier he had just received with a serious expression. It began with a kid, case 1, I've never seen a 10-year-old so cowardly. According to what he reported, Hayden approached 2 cadets at the end of the line. The kid claimed he had a secret order from the commander. Even snatched someone's hand and then just struck once. The excited young man recounted, startled by the gunshot, I turned to look. Who would have expected the kid to suddenly collapse and pass out? He froze at what had happened. Did he faint during the fight? But when I anxiously stepped closer, he stabbed me right there. Next was case 2. Hayden looked exactly like a seasoned soldier. Predicting our movement routes and devising countermeasures, I'd think a child could do that. But Hayden carried out the mission with terrifying professionalism, not tense at all, completely at ease. As if he'd fought us countless times before. Among those interviewed, Merceau paid special attention to one person. It was a kid in case 3. You ask how Hayden's abilities are. He was so earnest there was no pretense. Hayden is a god. Back in the present, Merceau concluded, though there are a few odd opinions, I believe they're simply astonished by Hayden's skill. He thought to himself that the commander probably ordered the joint training to show off his kid. Fine, go along with it. After finishing reading the dozen papers, Hayden called softly, Merceau. He replied promptly, yes, sir. Without hesitation, he decided, Hayden will command this purge operation. Merceau's shout echoed through the building, what? Soon after, Merceau confronted Hayden. Are you asking me to give up command of this purge operation? What's this? Afraid I'll tarnish your reputation? After the training ended and the permit to join the purge operation arrived, an order was issued granting me overall command. Of course, to avoid backlash from other officers, Merceau was the one to officially register as commander of the purge operation. Merceau rubbed his temples in frustration. You know that's not what I mean. Simulated training and actual combat are entirely different things. And as the cadet said, your skill is unusually outstanding. Even the purge route you mapped out yourself is an area that's very hard to grasp, just looking at the map, yet you know it all too well. Merceau concluded from his own observations, it's almost as if you've been there before. Dopamine Addict sighed, exclaiming, being able to read a map a bit, is that astonishing? He decided to keep the secrets behind him hidden. I had no intention of telling Merceau I was a regressor, but he kept digging. Should I try to distract him with something else? Hayden slapped his hand on the strategy map. What we need to focus on now isn't the map but the inefficiency of the combat method. I've heard that in purge operations people usually immobilize the monsters first, then locate and destroy their mana cores. He got quickly absorbed in the topic. Right, because to determine the core's location, you first have to control their movement. What he said next stunned Merceau. Isn't that an extremely inefficient combat method? If we destroy the mana core from the start, we can bypass the whole fighting process. Faced with that radical plan, Merceau frowned and warned, Hayden, the mana core positions vary for each monster. Small and medium monsters have small bodies, so their cores are easy to find. But for giant species, even guessing where it's located is difficult. Most of the monsters we face in purge operations are giant species. Prioritizing core destruction, as you suggest, is almost impossible. It seems he's taking this seriously. Dopamine Addict's mouth twitched up for a moment, yet inside he was calculating. How many monsters have I wiped out while sweeping through all those areas anyway? Mana cores are like a monster's vitals, so they'll be located at the safest point on their bodies. For example, for horned monsters, the mana core will be near the base of the horn. In short, after playing it over and over, just by looking at a monster's footprints, I can sense where its core is. He casually dropped a bombshell. I can know the exact location of the mana cores. Merceau's pupils constricted sharply. What? Hayden continued regardless, so this purge operation will be executed with high efficiency. Night was falling. Hayden lay in bed but kept working. He remembered the morning conversation. Merceau's face showed complete disbelief, but he'd already informed him of the plan. That's settled. Dopamine Addict reached out and lightly tapped the system screen. More importantly, what's this nonsense again? Dozens of messages came in. Home Protector, what are you doing that you won't even reply to the group chat? +6 T-Bastard, what's your real identity? +3 Hayden scrolled through and thought. There were a bunch of unread messages in the group chat. Had something happened? He checked the message history. It all started with a message from Druggy. I just received a very strange message. It was sent by someone calling themselves Dopamine Addict. Did anyone else get it? The protagonist paid special attention to this. Someone claiming to be Dopamine Addict. He recalled the first time he woke up in this world. Safe Zone had been impersonated once before. And now another imposter had appeared. More messages appeared. Denties, I saw it and I'm not sure what to do. Shin, I actually got it too, that message. Is that possible, huh? So I'm not the only one? Home Protector, it sent to me as well. I don't cry, it's cardio. Hey, what message are you guys talking about? I don't see anything. The protagonist nodded and watched. It seemed everyone had received the same message. I don't cry, it's cardio. Am I the only one who didn't get it? Home Protector, I thought it was a fake account, so I didn't even bother opening it. What's the content? Shin, I found it suspicious and was going to ignore it, but when I heard everyone got it, I got curious who sent it. Listen to me, I don't cry, it's cardio. I told you I didn't get it. The above messages made him curious, but what did the message actually say? At that moment, a message from an account named Shin arrived. The one sent to me says, can interact with all zones except the Unicorn Zone. But the sender is Dopamine Addict. The protagonist sat bolt upright excitedly. Wait, it was sent using my own ID. The chat erupted at night. Druggy, mine said the exact same thing. Dopamine Addict can interact with all zones except the Unicorn Zone. Home Protector, I told you that's not the real Dopamine Addict. 100% an imposter. I have Dopamine Addict as a friend, so it should have been able to send me a one-on-one chat, but now it's blocked. Shin, friend, my friend request was ignored. I don't cry, it's cardio, but who would send such a message and to what end? Shin, good question. Theoretically, we shouldn't be able to contact other zones until the second cataclysm, right? He recalled memories from before crossing over. In the game, zones were always separated by a protective barrier until the second cataclysm occurred. Is that possible? But who knows, maybe there was never any barrier between zones. This made Hayden suspicious as well. Come to think of it, I'd never been to the border between zones. I should take the opportunity to check during this purge operation. However, the barrier issue could be set aside for now. After all, why would players in the Unicorn Zone pull a stunt like this? A few dozen discussion messages were sent. Shin, everyone remembers this chat is only for players who have unlocked the system, right? Denties, if so, could the sender be a player from the Unicorn Zone? Shin, newbie but sharp, huh? Right, because the only remaining candidate would be a player from the Unicorn Zone. Druggy, by the way, I just discovered something very strange. Everyone look at the member list in the public chat. Reading Shin's message, Hayden grew curious. The member list in the chat. He looked it over and found nothing unusual. There were 8 people in total listed in order of joining the public chat. Seems fine. But then I don't cry, it's cardio spotted something. Isn't it that with me counted it's 8 people, but without me it's already 8. Druggy, I thought that top name showing twice meant they were the one who created the chat. The protagonist paused for a beat. What does that mean? That can't be. In everyone else's lists until now, they all saw their own 2 IDs displayed. If you select your own ID in the chat list, your personal info pops up, but if you select someone else's ID, do you want to send a friend request to Dopamine Addict? He was momentarily shocked, so another player had been hiding here from the start. The protagonist's mood tensed. Still, he didn't react immediately. He had to check messages sent to others first. There might be important information. Even with 2 accounts, he felt temporarily reassured. It didn't seem too serious. As for T-Bastard. Suddenly, Hayden came across something that made his eyes widen. Dozens of messages arrived. T-Bastard, Dopamine Addict. Is that really you? T-Bastard, if it's an imposter, how did it know the private conversation between the two of us? T-Bastard, we've been friends before, so I assumed that was you and even messaged them. T-Bastard, what's your real identity? A thought flashed through Dopamine Addict's mind. Befriend another dopamine addict. He looked at the name on the system board. That's the question I want to ask. The corner of his mouth curved into a smile. So who are you, after all? Dopamine Addict waited irritably for an answer while holding the glowing tablet in the dark room. On the screen, a message from Companion appeared asking if they weren't already virtual friends. He joked that the other guy must be an idiot for accepting 2 friend requests at once. That bastard T angrily threatened to kill him as soon as they escaped, but Dopamine Addict found it amusing because he was so quick to rage. He began to wonder how the imposter knew private details of their conversation. He suspected his opponent might have leaked them, but Companion immediately warned that he only replied tersely to the imposter. Dopamine Addict asked if anything strange was in the chat, but the other said he'd always been odd. Companion sent another message revealing he was sure the imposter was hiding in the unicorn territory. Dopamine Addict doubted the sudden claim and demanded his friend provide real proof immediately. The mysterious opponent produced a fresh mandarin, explaining he just traded for a rare fruit in a recent item exchange. He was surprised to hear about the rare fruit because finding any fresh food in the snow is extremely difficult. In that harsh ice age, finding fruit was nearly impossible, except in the wealthy scientific tech city. There the technology was so advanced they had made the area float in the sky to protect laboratories, countless glass domes, and advanced research, maintaining a unique self-sustaining system. That floating zone was the only place that had preserved Earth's ancient ecosystem. Dopamine Addict concluded that this indeed confirmed the mysterious imposter's location was in the wealthy unicorn colony. T-Bastard asked if he intended to investigate there, but Dopamine Addict decided to ignore the imposter for the time being. He planned to have that guy clear the zones for him while he prepared to seize the unicorn territory. T-Bastard thought the usurper must know all the game guides and secret strategies for advancing. T-Bastard asked whether he had the nerve to destroy the fortress he himself had built. The black-haired boy looked down with delight, which left the small, scruffy kid completely flustered, mumbling, "Huh." Dopamine Addict asked, "Aren't you the player who countered my walkthrough strategy?" which made the black-haired boy start noticeably. "Why are you acting like there's no way to win?" The one in white looked on with an encouraging smile. In chat, T-Bastard asked, "You know my playstyle?" Dopamine Addict replied, "Of course I do. You show up on my feed all the time. You keep sniping at me." The boy gaped in astonishment. T-Bastard oddly replied, "I appear often, I see. Haha, haha." The one in white stared at the screen blankly, wondering what was wrong with him. Looking deeper, Dopamine Addict weighed his odds. If I fight the imposter now, do I have about a 60% chance? I have perks to clear every zone so I won't lose. But as T-Bastard said, I don't have a complete advantage. There's a technological gap between zones that my abilities alone can't overcome. But looking at the unicorn region badge glowing, it's not impossible. Dopamine Addict ordered, "Message me if anything happens and tell me if he messages you again." T-Bastard unexpectedly agreed. "Okay, will do," making Dopamine Addict think to himself that he suddenly seemed obedient. A sudden alert sounded on the holographic screens, pulling Dopamine Addict's attention back to the active chat. Home Protector continued to spam messages, panicking because the imposter had started at Dopamine Addict's main base, making Dopamine Addict sigh irritably. "Why does this guy talk so much?" Home Protector suddenly asked, "Didn't you say you'd take me to the unicorn later?" Home Protector shamelessly begged to hitch a ride to the unicorn. Dopamine Addict replied, "Okay, I'll think about it," causing the other to react excitedly, though Dopamine Addict muttered to himself, "I only said I'd think about it." Dopamine Addict changed the subject. More importantly, check whether the barrier to other zones has actually disappeared. If the barrier is gone, low-difficulty zones will be raided first by other zones, making Home Protector realize the danger. Staring at the screen from his bed, Dopamine Addict thought, the zone nearest the tobacco region where Home Protector is located is that one. I have a very bad feeling about the player who unlocked that zone. Staring at the silent chat screens, Dopamine Addict quietly noted there was no reply. Closing his eyes to sleep, Dopamine Addict thought, let them come, because I have no intention of losing, no matter who the opponent is. Time passed quickly until the next morning. A heavy military boot stepped firmly into the fresh, deep snow outside the zone's safe boundary. The blonde boy shouted in frustration, call me out more, the army sucks. As the blonde kept whining loudly, Dopamine Addict looked back in utter embarrassment, thinking, this shameful bastard, you'll scare all the monsters away. Today, I'll show Merceau the technique for identifying the gemstone location and test the prototype military ration being developed. As they moved out of the zone, the blonde complained, Merceau, why are you looking at me like that? Oh, creepy, I mean, why are you smiling like an uncle? Merceau gently replied, just glad to see a kid acting his age. While Dopamine Addict quietly noted, he's already 20. The freckled red-haired boy watched silently, looking a little worried as they prepared to go farther. The redhead asked anxiously, are we really okay going out of the zone by ourselves? Merceau reassured, we won't go far from the zone today, and I won't let you do anything dangerous. Merceau explained, this morning a large monster called a teal gator was spotted. It's said to be injured, so we should find it quickly. Normally we'd leave it to the watchtower guards, but if what Hayden said is true, we can find the gemstone immediately without harming the teal gator. Dopamine Addict nodded confidently and replied, of course. The blonde picked up a small star-shaped candy and asked, by the way, I wonder if the military rations taste good. I mean the star candy. While Merceau proudly boasted about the protein-rich rations they'd developed, Dopamine Addict brushed it off and asked the blonde, did you train as a healer in the army? The blonde replied shyly, a little. The blonde explained, I think I can heal others as long as I have physical contact. This surprised Dopamine Addict. Seeing the confident sparkle on Dopamine Addict's face, the blonde broke into a sweat and asked, what's with that smug look? Dopamine Addict said, I'm just proud of you. The blonde shouted in exasperation, come on, you're thinking finally carrying some of the load, aren't you? Suddenly Merceau raised a gloved hand to signal stop. His expression sharpened and turned serious. A colossal scaly teal gator lay motionless on the snow-covered ground right ahead of them in the silent clearing. Looking forward, Dopamine Addict quietly announced, target acquired. The red-haired boy worriedly noted it had a wound on its right flank. Dopamine Addict quickly analyzed the situation, if it's defending to the right. He looked through the scope, pinpointing the beast's weak spot. Then the teal gator's critical point, the gemstone, was located at. At the perfect moment, a shot rang out through the snowy woods as the answer was revealed in its left belly area. Merceau stared in complete shock, whispering, unbelievable, you shattered the gemstone with absolute precision. Dopamine Addict coldly ordered, we'll need more people to carry the carcass back, so fire a flare. The blonde grumbled, boss is annoying. Pointing at the monster, Dopamine Addict bragged, see, this shortens combat time and minimizes damage to the edible parts. When Merceau responded in amazement, as expected, he solemnly remarked, you really are the son of a hero in the cleansing wars. This made Dopamine Addict slightly startled. Merceau happily imagined a prosperous future for Colazone and thought monster hunting would become easier. Dopamine Addict broke into a sweat and thought, I expected suspicion, not excitement. Merceau said, anyway, to be safe, we should move. But he was cut off by a sudden mechanical buzzing in the sky. Hearing the strange sound, Dopamine Addict looked up, wondering. Hovering high above on a high-tech hoverboard, a mysterious silver-haired man peered down, murmuring in surprise, he's loitering with Merceau. Dopamine Addict stood firm in the snow, back turned as he quietly glanced up at the unexpected visitor in the sky. The blonde looked back in complete shock, calling out loudly as he recognized the distant silhouette, hey, isn't that? Looking down with a gentle smile from above was a young man with silver hair as the voice called, Dopamine Addict. Messy black hair, hollow black eyes. Skin as pale as the white lab coat he wore. It was a face any safe zone player would recognize instantly. Tijang Tisabayance, the excited room called him that, addressed him as Sir. but the real dopamine addict sensed something terribly wrong and shook his head. The real dopamine addict remained cautious, ordering Merceau to wait and not approach without thinking it through. But the blonde couldn't restrain himself and lunged at the man, shouting his name, convinced it was the real dopamine addict. Dopamine addict grabbed the boy's arm to stop him, warning that the man was not who he thought. As for corner room husband, confused, he asked if the man wasn't his biggest fan. He was certain that face could not be mistaken and that he was standing before the real dopamine addict. Dopamine addict thought to himself that in this world anyone's identity could be verified through the system. The imposter, with a mocking smile, invited them to check his profile to see exactly who he was. Dopamine addict opened the system menu and selected the profile view function to confirm the data. He braced himself to see the real name, though he felt a heavy sense that the whole situation was fundamentally distorted. He noticed the man was exactly the same height as his original adult form, and the imposter strode toward them with absolute confidence, but a nagging doubt still gnawed at dopamine addict. He should have been the only one retaining an adult body. Corner room husband looked at the imposter and asked if he had recognized him. The imposter called him by his player name, Corner Room Husband. Corner Room Husband boasted to dopamine addict that the newcomer had recognized him much faster than his actual companions had. He then froze completely when he realized everyone was aiming weapons at the newcomer, not understanding what was happening. He asked calmly why everyone was pointing guns at the imposter, while dopamine addict demanded what the hell they taught in the army. With a cold smile, the man said there was no need to be afraid because he had not come to harm them. Dopamine addict didn't believe him for a second and kept his rifle at the ready, thinking that everything coming from the man's mouth was garbage. The stranger taunted dopamine addict, saying he was so tense he didn't even dare open the user's profile. Dopamine addict admitted to himself that it irritated him, but the man was right. He had hesitated too long before verifying the identity. Not wanting to waste any more time, dopamine addict activated the system function and viewed the stranger's data. His shock was absolute when the name on the screen was indeed dopamine addict. Dopamine addict stood there processing the information. The name, the man, and the region all matched his old identity perfectly. Dopamine addict bluntly asked how he had obtained that name, while the imposter responded with hollow, mysterious eyes and cryptically said it was too early to reveal those details. Then changed the subject, claiming there were more important things to verify. The imposter asked the protagonist why he was still traveling with Merceau. If he were me, he wouldn't hesitate to poison him. Dopamine addict began to suspect this guy was overplaying his role as dopamine addict. Corner room husband stood there lost in thought, trying to piece the puzzle together. Then a light bulb suddenly went off in the blonde's head and he exclaimed that he finally understood everything. He shouted that he knew something was wrong and asked why. The blonde yelled as he suddenly realized the most obvious truth. Dopamine addict was the only adult in the room. Everyone else appeared in the bodies of 10-year-old children. Why was he the only one fully grown? Dopamine addict looked at corner room husband, astonished that the blonde hadn't realized until now. While he complained about being abandoned, the imposter in the white coat interjected, nodding that dopamine addict was right. Corner room husband was too slow to be worthy as a teammate. With a cold wave of his hand, the man in white concluded that the best course was simply to eliminate him. Everyone immediately went on alert. Then a gunshot rang out. Corner room husband yelled at dopamine addict, asking if he was insane and how he could let someone shoot at a player like that. Dopamine addict defended himself, explaining it was only a warning shot. They couldn't sit still and be slaughtered. The imposter stood there calmly inspecting the scorch marks on his own uniform, showing not a shred of fear. He taunted them, asking if that pathetic warning was their plan, then coldly added that he'd do the same. Drifting on his platform, he remarked that their power level was acceptable for his plan. Dopamine addict looked up at him, completely puzzled by the meaning of inspection complete. The stranger called back that he merely needed to see whether his younger version was developing as expected. Dopamine addict's blood boiled at the way the man behaved like a seasoned mentor barking orders from above at a rookie. Finally, the imposter stopped the platform and shouted that he almost forgot they were to receive a welcome gift. Before leaving, he suddenly remembered something, then raised his gun. His target was the youth-clutching corner room husband, whom he deemed useless. Immediately after, a gunshot rang out. At the same time, however, the protagonist lunged to take the bullet for corner room husband, the wound twisting his face in pain. The imposter, seeing this, seemed a little disappointed and whispered, "As expected, we are not the same." After saying that, he piloted the hoverboard and flew away. Merceau breathed a sigh of relief that the bullet hadn't hit a vital spot. He ordered P1-26 to stay with Dopamine Addict, while he went to find reinforcements to patrol the area. Dopamine Addict writhed in the snow, cursing the bastard's shooting skill under his breath. Corner room husband erupted in anger, yelling that dog Dopamine Addict was a certified mad killer. He looked at Dopamine Addict with a mix of horror and confusion, asking why a madman like him would take a bullet to protect a body like his. Dopamine Addict returned that look with absolute calm, asking him instead what he thought the reason was. Without a second's hesitation, Dopamine Addict ordered corner room husband to treat him immediately, leaving the blonde utterly stunned. Dopamine Addict admitted he had deliberately let himself be shot just to test corner room husband's healing ability, thinking that if the stacking effect worked, he could heal others in the team. He screamed, calling him completely insane, while Dopamine Addict ignored it with an expressionless face. Despite the complaints, corner room husband began using his ability to stitch Dopamine Addict's wound, while Dopamine Addict called him by the nickname Running Outer. Dopamine Addict told him that because he had just saved his life, he had something very important to confess, a statement that put corner room husband instantly on the defensive. At Dopamine Addict's request, corner room husband leaned in, curious about his teammate's mysterious announcement. After hearing Dopamine Addict's whisper, corner room husband's eyes widened and he repeated in disbelief. And corner room husband stood frozen by what he had just heard. He couldn't believe that Dopamine Addict truly was the legendary Dopamine Addict and not just a T-bastard. Dopamine Addict replied with perfect composure that had he spoken earlier, corner room husband certainly wouldn't have agreed to anything. After a while, the treatment was nearly complete. However, the protagonist stopped the blonde youth from treating him further, warning that he couldn't be healed more or Merceau would become suspicious about his unusually fast recovery. Corner room husband was still processing the news, irritated that P1-26 had known who Dopamine Addict was beforehand while he had been kept in the dark. Dopamine Addict clarified that the person accompanying P1-26 already knew the situation and that he himself was the one who revealed it earlier. He changed the subject, warning that the imposter they had just met was far more dangerous than the previous one. A system message appeared, indicating that this imposter could interact with all regions except Unicorn. Dopamine Addict realized that if that person could make it here, the barriers between regions were likely gone. What troubled him most was that the imposter had an adult body while they remained trapped in child bodies. Corner room husband theorized that it might be some form of forced growth using high-level unicorn technology. He wiped the blood from his skin with a cloth, certain that there had to be another reason behind that appearance. He fell silent for a moment, analyzing every detail of the strange encounter. What gnawed at him was that, imposter or not, the man felt very much like his own way of thinking. He recalled the remark about developing properly and felt a fierce anger well up just at the thought of it. At that moment, the boy P1-26 appeared, ran over, and shouted to them that Merceau had returned. Dopamine Addict immediately cut the tense atmosphere, relieved that they were no longer alone. He said firmly that it would be best to continue this conversation later, and stressed that they must not reveal a single word about what had happened today if anyone asked. Then, waiting until everyone had gathered, the protagonist pretended to still be injured. The scene shifted to the majestic complex of the military base where Dopamine Addict was quartered. His father entered with steady, measured steps, showing no visible worry for his wounded child, and looked down at him from the bed. Dopamine Addict thought to himself that it was no coincidence people called him the cold-blooded commander. Hayden got straight to the point and asked who exactly was hunting him. He knew he had to choose his words extremely carefully to avoid arousing further suspicion. He offered a calculated lie. He said he had known the subject before, but now he wasn't sure who the person actually was. Hayden stared at him intently, trying to grasp whether he was referring to someone from before his supposed regression. Dopamine Addict knew Merceau had already told the boss everything, so he had to be extremely deft to keep his story consistent. He thought that if he wanted to cleanse the image of an illegitimate heir, he couldn't let anyone discover he was a player. He lowered his eyes and added that, as far as he could recall, the mysterious name came from the Unicorn region, hinting that perhaps an unknown new player had appeared. And Hayden seemed to consider that possibility, admitting that given the current situation it sounded plausible. Dopamine Addict smiled inwardly, seeing that the old man had swallowed the story whole, but was taken aback when Hayden ordered him to enter the officer academy to become stronger. Dopamine Addict tried to object, saying he could heal his wounds himself, but his father would not accept a refusal. Hayden placed his hand on his head and chillingly reiterated how his mother, Lunamoon, had died. Then clarified that he wasn't asking him to stay 6 years, but only to complete a short training course, and to get used to this body before being thrown into a real genocidal battle. That way, Hayden could give him a proper command position without other officers whispering behind his back. Dopamine Addict digested the order. After all, it was a golden opportunity to quickly gain status. A few days later at the academy, the senior cadets were whispering that they did not like the newcomer's presence at all. The rumor spread fast. Everyone was talking about the 10-year-old who had humiliated 6 classmates. Beto and the others wore tense faces, annoyed at having to deal with such an arrogant little pro. One person tried to calm the mood, saying there was no need to bow after facing Dopamine Addict head-on. But the other cadets were not convinced. They felt their reputations had been dragged through the mud by the superior's decision. The group reluctantly accepted that they would have to endure it, especially since it involved Hayden's heir. Then an officer entered the room to announce that he had an important statement for everyone. The others watched with curiosity as the officer formally introduced the new recruit. It turned out Dopamine Addict would be training with them for a while, much to the displeasure of the Blonde's group. Dopamine Addict revealed a friendly smile that made the other cadets tremble with anger. They were sick of being scrutinized because of him and tired of the constant criticism about their uniforms. The officer clarified that Dopamine Addict's right to be there had been proven beyond doubt after the combat simulation. Just when it seemed no one would speak, the Blonde stood up from his seat to ask to speak. The Blonde admitted that the 6 who lost to him were idiots, but warned that not all cadets were like that. He stared at the Blonde, maintaining a calm that unnerved the veterans. He asked in heavy sarcasm whether they really believed they had any chance of beating him. He pointed out that his father had acknowledged his talent after just one training session, though apparently they needed more proof. He insisted his previous victory wasn't pure luck and that it was time to settle this properly. His proposal was simple. He wanted to prove his superiority with an on-the-spot combat simulation. The Blonde accepted the challenge immediately, thinking the kid was overly arrogant. He proposed splitting the class into 2 teams, him and the 6 who had lost to him versus the rest of their team. He said he didn't mind the unfavorable odds, but things were about to get interesting with one small condition. His win condition was that none of his teammates be eliminated during the simulation. With absolute confidence, Dopamine Addict added that if even one ally fell, he would admit total defeat on the spot. The Blonde's expression changed instantly and he growled, asking if the boy was insulting them. Time quickly passed as the scene shifted to the military academy dormitory. The sound of rapid footsteps never stopped echoing. They had someone playing the protagonist's position. The black-haired kid inside the group spoke first. Hayden, why would you set such a condition? From the start, we didn't want to compete. If just one person is eliminated, we lose. Do you know how much we've been mocked lately? If we lose again this time, we'll really have to drop out. Hearing him, the protagonist only sighed once. I think I know why that cadet is so hostile toward everyone. He recalled the earlier scene inside the classroom. Lucas looked at him with eyes full of hatred, asking whether he truly dared to openly despise them like that. Dopamine Addict looked him straight in the eyes without showing any emotion and replied, "No, Cadet Lucas, you're the one judging me without ever having fought me. Is that really how a military academy cadet should behave?" Lucas clenched his fist and answered, "Understood, I'll beat you right in front of everyone." Dopamine Addict showed a faint smile before saying, "The important part is what you just said, right in front of everyone. If you win this exercise, everyone will see how talented you are." It was revealed then that each cadet standing in that room would later become an NPC and achieve notable things after graduating from the academy. In the future, each of them would build a reputation based on their abilities and become important figures. But right now, they bore no resemblance to those future legends. They were acting pitifully, unable to get over the humiliation of being beaten by a 10-year-old. The shock of that loss had shattered their confidence and left them constantly doubting themselves. Just then, one cadet spoke up with a suspicious look. "Do you really think it'll be that easy?" At the question, Dopamine Addict fell silent and looked at them while thinking to himself, "I'm going to stay at the academy for a while, so I arrived early to unpack. I didn't expect this to happen on my very first morning. If they're going to work for me later, they have to graduate first. Maybe it's time to give them a little motivation." After deciding, Dopamine Addict raised his voice so everyone in the room could hear. "Everyone, do you know why I specifically chose all of you for the first training simulation?" One cadet immediately raised his hand and answered confidently, "Because we are the Academy's top cadets." Dopamine Addict nodded without hesitation and said, "Exactly, I believe all of you are the Academy's leading cadets." He continued without hesitation, "And I want the other cadets to know that too." The room fell silent for a moment before a cadet spoke with obvious worry. "We lost to you so badly, young Master Hayden, and now you're imposing even harsher conditions. Can we actually win?" The win condition for Dopamine Addict's team was then revealed. Not a single member of his team may be eliminated. Every cadet must survive for the team to be declared the winner. After hearing the doubts, Dopamine Addict stepped forward and asked, "Do I beat you because the conditions favor me? Do I beat you because you're off guard? Some might think I fight unfairly. But if you follow me, I will ensure you win at all costs." His confident words immediately shifted the atmosphere. Rather than empty promises, Dopamine Addict spoke like someone utterly certain he could lead them to victory. Then Dopamine Addict walked to the bookshelf while quietly thinking to himself, "Thanks to the cadets, I finished unpacking early. Did I put some books a bit too high?" As he reached for the shelf, it was clear his injured arm was still causing him a lot of pain. In his head he thought, "Merceau still suspects me, so I'm deliberately healing the wound bit by bit. What a nuisance." At that moment, Platon entered the room and asked, "What are you looking for?" Dopamine Addict answered calmly, "It's nothing, I don't need it right now." Before the conversation ended, he suddenly said, "Actually, I heard you were injured." Hearing that startled Dopamine Addict. The commander had given explicit orders for everyone to keep quiet about my injury. How did he find out? He wondered. Perhaps it's the advantage of being an officer's son. It seemed Anton had planted more informants than I thought. Looking back on everything that had happened, Dopamine Addict sighed inwardly. Well then, I made quite a dramatic hospital entrance. In any case, it seemed Anton had told his son. I can't believe he was honest enough to spill everything. Platon looked at Dopamine Addict's arm and said, "You still look like you're recovering. Maybe postpone the training simulation for a bit." Hearing that, Dopamine Addict couldn't help thinking, it seems the suggestion to make him my aide worked better than I expected. Then he answered, "Actually, I was in the hospital. I've heard about all of you. I heard the other cadets have been mocking you." Platon turned and asked, "Are you disappointed?" The protagonist affirmed, "No, it only makes me want to prove the truth even faster. The cadets who face me are all very capable." That remark left Platon somewhat surprised. Then he said, "If that can help you heal your wounds more than you, Hayden, then I'll do whatever it takes to win this drill." As if having achieved his aim, the protagonist smiled and explained, "You know this drill is 6 versus 6, right? The other side has 6 people, and your team also has 6 people. So someone has to leave the team to make room for me. You just said you'd do anything to win, didn't you? So for this drill, you should withdraw from your team." The scene shifted to the day of the second training simulation. At the main base, Lucas, acting as his team's commander, looked around after checking the area and said confidently, "Good, main base checked." The team continued discussing reconnaissance units and the rest of the forces, ensuring every squad was performing its assigned tasks. At the same time, Lucas kept recalling the directives and notes given earlier, making sure no one overlooked the strategy they had agreed on. After everything went according to plan, the group moved deeper into the training area. However, as they went further, they suddenly discovered a body lying on the ground. To everyone's shock, it was Dopamine Addict. The whole group froze in disbelief. They immediately rushed to him, unable to comprehend what they were seeing. Confusion was clear on their faces as they began asking each other, did they really leave him here alone? Cut to the main base of Team B. A masked soldier looked around and said, "Lucas is late." Another calmly replied, "I can only guess something good happened to him." At that moment, Vance suddenly interrupted, "Don't say things like that, you know how calm Lucas is. He probably already dealt with that kid." Just then, Lucas finally returned to base. Everyone looked at him and asked, "Senior, you're back." Seeing the captain carrying a stranger, they hurriedly asked, "What happened?" Lucas sighed before explaining, "My teammates ambushed me as soon as the training began." Next, the protagonist began recounting how things came to this. One by one, Team A's members started arguing with each other. "We can't agree to rules you made up yourself. We lose if even one person dies, so obviously we'll lose. You even abandoned Platon. If you want to die, die alone." Dopamine Addict slowly sat up and replied in a calm but firm voice, "Then they took my weapon and left me." Someone immediately questioned, "Did you really exclude Platon from the drill?" Unapologetic, Dopamine Addict answered, "Yes, I acknowledge his skill, but if a team has 2 leaders, it's easy for conflicts to arise." Another soldier couldn't understand his decision and asked, "But why did you do that?" Dopamine Addict looked straight ahead and replied, "I told him to leave for the sake of the team." As the discussion continued, Vance suddenly declared, "We should kill him right here." However, Lucas immediately opposed that idea. Looking at everyone, he explained, "If we kill young Master Dopamine Addict right now, the exercise will end. This isn't a trap." No wonder those cowards dared show up at the training ground. They came to get revenge on the young master. His words made everyone hesitate. Someone asked, "So what should we do? Leaving him like this feels a bit." Before you could finish, another soldier replied, "I feel sorry for his situation, but this is training. I can't release an enemy in the middle of our base." Another member immediately retorted, "Didn't you hear young Master Dopamine Addict? He said they attacked him unfairly. Think about it." Vance listened to the back-and-forth arguments. He quietly sank into deep thought. "We're starting to have internal disagreements." Someone objected, "If we win by killing a child betrayed by his own teammates, who will acknowledge our skill?" Vance shouted, determined, "We should kill him now and end the exercise." At that moment, another soldier told him to step aside as Lucas stepped forward. He drew a knife, then freed Dopamine Addict. Lucas looked around at everyone and calmly said, "I've heard all your opinions. If you want to leave the young master here, then change the plan, deal with the regular cadets from that team and win that way." After making the decision, Lucas immediately began issuing orders. Looking at 2 teammates, he said, "Cohen and Harry, you 2 stay here and guard the young master and the flag. The rest of us will go to the other team's base. Finish this quickly." The team quickly prepared to depart, but Vance remained dissatisfied with Lucas's choice. Staring at him, he said, "Lucas, honestly, I'm disappointed in you." Lucas turned to him and asked calmly, "About what?" Vance folded his arms before answering, "Isn't the goal of this training to teach that arrogant kid a lesson?" Lucas shook his head and replied, "If we win this exercise, he won't be able to brag like before." Someone reminded them, "More importantly, we don't want a shameful victory. Shooting an unresisting prisoner is simply wrong." Even he who advocated killing dopamine addict understood that a victory achieved that way would stain their reputation. At that moment, everyone's attention was suddenly drawn to the sky as a flare shot up. Many immediately looked toward the source with surprise. "Is that a signal flare?" The flare clearly came from the direction of the base. Realizing something might have happened, Lucas immediately led the team back. When they arrived, the flag was still standing, but dopamine addict appeared to be slightly injured. Lucas quickly asked, "What happened?" Dopamine addict, with an emotional expression, explained, "While you were away, my teammates showed up and tried to seize the flag." Lucas's expression immediately darkened. "Where are Cohen and Harry?" he demanded. Dopamine addict pointed toward the woods and replied, "They were guarding the flag with me. After the flare was fired, they were dragged away somewhere. I still protected the flag. Being stabbed or shot by teammates doesn't count as dying, so I used my body to shield the flag so they couldn't take it." The story sounded convincing enough that even Team B's members became alert. Vance immediately spoke up, "If this is true, then those bastards from the other team are probably still nearby. I'll guard the flag and this kid. Lucas, you lead the team to patrol the area. If I hear gunfire, I'll shoot him immediately." Lucas thought for a moment. Something felt a bit off. He couldn't dismiss the possibility that the other team was still hiding nearby. Finally, he nodded, "All right." Then turning to the others, he said, "I'll leave him to you." With that, Lucas and the rest of Team B moved into the surrounding area to search for the enemy, leaving Vance and dopamine addict at the base. In moments, everyone vanished from sight. The atmosphere changed completely. Standing in front of dopamine addict, Vance slowly raised his gun and pointed it straight at his head. A cold smile appeared on his face as he said, "Why don't you stop that pathetic act?" Dopamine addict calmly looked back at him and replied, "You purposely drove all my teammates away just to do this." Vance made no denial. "Exactly, those bastards kept falling for your traps because they weren't sharp. Now it's one-on-one. I can end this training right now. I've never met such an annoying brat in my life." Instead of showing fear, dopamine addict just smiled. "Really? Not me. I know someone who swears and complains about everything just like you." Vance's face twisted with annoyance as his finger tightened on the trigger. Yet dopamine addict kept smiling as if he were in no danger. "I want to correct something. This isn't a one-on-one. And I never said my team had left this place." Those words immediately froze Vance. "What did you just say?" he asked. Ignoring the question, dopamine addict suddenly recalled what he had said earlier. "Platin, leave the drill for the sake of the team." Then another memory followed. "I have a favor to ask you. You know how people gossip behind someone's back, right?" As the pieces began to come together, recognition slowly appeared on Vance's face. "Just as I thought, all that internal dissent was lies." Still, he tried to maintain his confidence. "Down," he thought, "but if there's only one person from Team A, I still have the advantage." Luckily for dopamine addict, he had prepared for this moment. He quickly drew his pistol, pointed it at Vance, and said, "Thanks for sending Lucas away." No sooner had the words left his mouth than a gunshot rang out across the training ground. The forest's peaceful silence shattered in an instant, and the only thing that could be heard afterward was Vance's furious scream, "Arrogant bastard." Dopamine addict's father looked at him closely, noticed the wound on his face, and remarked that he'd heard dopamine addict had won the drill again. He said he wanted to hear the strategy directly from dopamine addict himself. Dopamine addict calmly explained that his strategy was very simple. He shared that the cadets looked down on him, so he gave them a stage to reinforce that belief. In his mind, if even one person died, they would lose. He admitted that at first the cadets probably thought he was crazy, but then they began to view each of his teammates as an opportunity to win. Dopamine addict continued to explain that he had rushed straight into the enemy base. The enemy only needed to kill one person to win, but he knew they wouldn't bother shooting a tied-up child. Listening intently, his father asked whether pretending to argue with Platon was also part of the plan. Dopamine Addict simply confirmed with a yes. His father asked one more thing, questioning why he hadn't pulled the flag during the first surprise attack when winning would have been easy. Dopamine Addict looked back with a faint smirk and replied that if he'd done that there would be no fun in it. The conversation ended, and Dopamine Addict walked out into the building's vast vaulted corridor. Walking on the carpet, he thought to himself that now that the meeting with the commander was over, he should go find Platon. Continuing down the corridor, he suddenly stopped and wondered what was happening ahead. A little further on, a cadet asked another how the training simulation had gone, only to be told not to ask. That cadet mentioned he was so nervous he'd started hearing things like someone threatening to wipe out their whole team. But then another team was eliminated. An angry cadet shouted, asking if they felt good about winning by using a child. Team A's cadets replied, reminding them that when they lost, the other guy called them idiots. But now that he lost, he suddenly says it's because they used a child. Frustrated, that cadet demanded a rematch. But another teammate pointed out that Lucas didn't even bother, so there was no reason to get so worked up. Suddenly, Lucas and Platon stepped forward, raising their hands to shut down the argument by shouting that it was enough. Platon turned to the group and apologized for his teammate causing the commotion and for mocking their defeat. Lucas added that he would also retract everything he had said earlier. However, Lucas stopped before declaring that he still could not accept the young master as a fellow cadet. Platon spoke up, asking if Lucas hadn't said he would accept young Master Hayden if he lost. Lucas admitted that young Master Hayden had talent and ability, but argued that if he were truly a cadet, he would have pulled the flag immediately. Lucas believed Dopamine Addict had treated the training like a game and used his teammates as pawns, something no one who wanted to be an officer should do. Watching from nearby, fans quietly agreed that Lucas was not wrong, thinking that young Master Hayden seemed to pursue stimulation rather than victory. Suddenly, Platon stepped in and confronted them, asking what they actually knew about the young master. When everyone turned to Platon in surprise, he revealed that young Master Hayden had been injured a few days earlier while hunting a furry crocodile. Hearing this, the surrounding cadets reacted in shock. Lucas recalled and noticed that one of Dopamine Addict's shoulders seemed stiff, wondering if that was the reason. Platon explained passionately that as soon as he heard other cadets mocking them, Dopamine Addict came here immediately without even waiting to be treated, all solely to restore their honor. Platon pointed out that Dopamine Addict even volunteered to be bait while injured, all for the honor of his teammates, and asked whether that was enough to prove he belonged here. After that, Dopamine Addict walked alongside Platon. When Platon finished explaining what had happened, Dopamine Addict realized why all the cadets had been staring at him so sharply. Platon clarified that it wasn't a clinging look but a look of respect. Dopamine Addict thought back to how Platon had improved his image without being asked, and noted that because people knew Platon wasn't the flattering type, the effect was greater. Platon apologized to young Master Hayden for telling everyone about the injury without permission. Dopamine Addict opened a door and calmly replied that he had no complaints if the cadets thought better of him. However, Dopamine Addict smiled and added that he couldn't miss the opportunity, telling Platon that if he truly felt guilty, he wanted to ask a favor. Platon asked what it was, worried that Dopamine Addict might ask him to spread rumors again. Dopamine Addict reassured him that it wasn't that, saying the favor he wanted only Platon could do, prompting Platon to immediately agree to do whatever he asked. After that, Dopamine Addict lay back comfortably, thinking this was certainly nicer than a hospital bed. Suddenly, he checked the chat interface and saw a notification that God had posted a message in the group chat. God wrote that they had a proposal for everyone, revealing they'd discovered love territory had no barriers between zones. Reading this, Dopamine Addict sat up in surprise, realizing they'd reached the very border between regions, and remarked how fast they'd come. He recalled that after the first apocalypse, there was almost no land left for humanity to inhabit, so the final 8 regions had to share an area roughly the size of the Korean peninsula. Put simply, the Kola region roughly lay where North Hamgyong province once was. The Cocaine region surrounded Gangan province with the Unicorn region above it. The Love and Tobacco regions were around Gyeogyuhangi province. The Knife region was around Busan. The Chicken and Candy regions were farther south. Dopamine Addict noted that because God's Love region was closest to Home Protector's Tobacco region, those two might meet sooner than expected. He then wondered why Home Protector was so silent when he was usually the first to read every message. Looking back through the chat history, the messages showed Home Protector repeatedly trying to get someone's attention. In the main chat, God proposed a meetup. Dentist asked what kind of proposal it was. Dopamine Addict asked if it had to do with the missing barriers, while Totally Possible told God to just say it. God responded by suggesting they meet up. But Drug Addict questioned what they would meet for. God suggested eating together and talking, but Totally Possible replied that God's head was full of flowers. Reading this exchange, Dopamine Addict thought that if they were truly that naive, they wouldn't have discovered the missing barrier so quickly. He was certain they had other reasons for wanting everyone to meet. He considered that at this point everyone were just 10-year-old kids with almost no power or resources, busy enough to fend for themselves, so there must be deeper motives to meet other players. In the chat, Drug Addict declared that if God had other reasons, better to be honest. God replied calmly, asserting the proposal came from goodwill and asking how they could stop the apocalypse together if they didn't trust one another. Drug Addict retorted, asking how anyone in this chat could be trusted enough to meet, reminding everyone that a few days ago they discovered 2 dopamine addicts in the group. God responded that they too had been duped by that bastard and had once just been a fan, but insisted they were still one of the good players. Finally, Drug Addict sent a private message to God, saying God seemed to think Drug Addict didn't know who they really were. Reading that message, God was slightly surprised. But then the corner of her mouth spread into a smile and she whispered, "Oh, now you've got my attention."